All right, it is 6:32 PM on February 13. This is a continuing Select Board meeting. We started the meeting at 6 PM. The board entered into executive session for the purposes of collective bargaining discussion. We've adjourned the executive session, and we're now going to begin our regular business meeting. I'd like to invite everyone in the room to please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. So we have a number of scheduled items. The first one begins at 7 PM. We're obligated to maintain those times for those particular business hearings. So we're going to move to some of the other non-scheduled items for the next 25 minutes or so, and we'll come back to the beginning of the agenda. So let me start at the bottom. We have minutes from January 9. We can take action on those. Mr. Holland, do you have a motion on January 9 minutes?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, and I'll note Mr. Kratman's joining us virtually, so all votes this evening will have to be taken by roll call. And I'll note for our recording secretary that the motion's offered by Mr. Holland, seconded by Mr. Mackey. With that having been said, Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
And the chair votes in the affirmative as well, so that's a 5-0 vote. If we can look at town council invoice under the town manager's report, that would be our next item.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's an invoice in the amount of $3,145 for January 1st of 2024 through January 15th of 2024, and I would recommend approval.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, and motion's offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Holland. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. So again, that's 5-0. Do you have any other items tonight?
No, just a presentation.
Okay. Okay, let's look at the presidential primary warrant you have in your packet. And we're being asked to approve the warrant for a posting that would declare Tuesday, March 5, 2024, between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. For the presidential primary here in the town of Tewksbury. And we will be voting for a presidential preference, state committee man, state committee woman, and town committee, town of Tewksbury. The same precincts, voting precincts in the town as have been recently utilized are also part of the warrant. 1 and 5 and 5A at the senior center, precincts 2 and 6 at the recreation center, precincts 3 and 7 at the town hall, precincts 4 and 8 at the Tewksbury Public Library. Are there any questions or comments about this particular action? And if not, may I have a motion to approve the posting of the warrant?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, motion's offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. That's 5-0, unanimous vote. We have a donation request from the Lowell 5 Bank. Correspondence from Janice Knoll to the town manager's office indicating that she received at the senior center a $2,000 check from Lowell 5 as a donation to the senior center. It's her intention to use the funds to provide a monthly breakfast for older adults in the community, and she's made arrangements to do so. We're being asked to accept the donation so that those proceeds can be used in the manner just described. May I ask a motion to accept that donation of $2,000?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, with a thank you to the Lowell 5.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holland, for the motion, and Mr. Mackey for the second. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote? Mr. Kratman? How do you
Aye.
vote? Thank you. Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes aye as well, so that's 5-0. We have another donation from a resident, I believe an anonymous request, or a donation rather, was left at the Tewksbury Police Department, the amount of $200. And it was not given with any specific purpose. But the police chief is asking us to accept the donation for use by the department. Any questions on that? Actually, let me rephrase, it was donated to the police with gratitude by Stephen Dolan on 10th Street. May I
So
ask for a
moved with-
motion to accept the donation?
Yeah, so moved with gratitude.
Thank you, Ms. Wellman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey, for the second. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson votes aye. That's 5-0. Okay, we have a request from Soldier On relative to the use of, or the waiver of permit fees. You have a letter dated January 24, 2024, indicating that they are seeking a waiver of fees that would range between $69,000 and $76,000. And they've indicated that their construction contract is $6.9 million, almost $7 million, with a contingency up to $7.6 million. Mr. Montori, do you want to offer any comments about this particular item?
Just that, the request came to us, and, the assistant town manager and I talked about that, we wouldn't normally waive the fee, but if the fee was going to be waived, we would recommend the money be transferred out of the Affordable Housing Trust, so the town's general fund is made whole with the revenue loss. Just for some history, the only time we've waived fees for nonprofits similar to this were for the Habitat for Humanity when they built on State Street, but that was a project initiated by the town to build an affordable housing unit. And we've waived fees for Tewksbury Habitat Build, again, for projects that were initiated by the town on town-owned land. The only other one that comes to mind is when the Housing Authority, along with Elder Affairs of Merrimack Valley, built the senior development on Livingston Street, and that was many years ago. So for others, whether they were group homes, things like that, we've not waived fees. So
Okay,
just from background information.
all right. Does anyone have questions on this item?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Through you to the town manager. What's the current balance on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund?
Give me 1 second.
Thanks.
It's around $6 million.
Thank you. I'm inclined to support the request. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and I'll just offer a comment. I actually am going to oppose the request. I think this is a bad precedent-setting request, and I feel that we've already gone to great lengths to support this project. We increased the amount that was originally given through the Housing Trust Fund. I know the costs have gone up, but I don't feel that this is the right approach to supporting the project. I think the board was clear that we had exhausted our willingness to increase amounts from the trust fund, and this is essentially, in my opinion, a way to go around that, to tap into another resource. I'm also concerned that this is a use of Tewksbury funds that is going to have very little, if any, benefit for Tewksbury residents. As we all know, Tewksbury veterans don't get a commitment to be in this facility. And while in general I support anything that benefits veterans, the use of Tewksbury funds to support a project that happens to be in Tewksbury but doesn't have any direct benefit to Tewksbury veterans is a concern to me. So I will just offer those comments, and I intend to vote against this particular item. Mr. Mackey, you want to offer a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am somewhere in the middle. While I'm not in favor of this waiver, again, for setting a precedent, and we have already committed the $500,000, I think you hit the nail on the head with it's not Tewksbury, it's Tewksbury's money not directly impacting Tewksbury residents or Tewksbury veterans. That being said, I personally have supported their fundraisers, am supporting their next fundraiser, and I think that that is how this should be done. So their next fundraiser is on March 10th, and I would encourage residents who want to see this go through, support through that fashion, as opposed to creating a precedent and kind of working around the information we've already given them.
Fair statement. Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Holland, Mr. Kratman?
I just want to make a comment. I understand that, this may not be directly impacting veterans that currently live in Tewksbury, but once the veterans move here, they'll become residents of Tewksbury, and there'll be veterans living in our community. It's difficult because I understand it's a trust fund that's supposed to be dedicated to dealing with Tewksbury residents, but having veterans move to our community, I think is important. I think supporting them is important. I understand that we've used a lot of the trust fund, and I had a couple of questions because waiving this, does it actually go directly to the veteran services, or does it go to the waiver of the fees to a contractor? And I really didn't get a clear-cut answer on that. And so I understand that, using this of, if we waive the fees, does it actually benefit the veterans in the development, or does it benefit the contractor and the cost of this? But I'm the same way. I'm torn on this. I want to support them, but I would like to see a little bit more information, or at least have them come in front of us and give a better explanation of why they need this. Well, thank you.
Mr. Montori, can you speak to the questions of Mr. Kratman?
Yeah, I don't have that answer. That's an answer that Soldier On would have to provide. So,
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Wellman?
I'd like to augment my previous statements. These are the permit fees, correct? So aren't these
Correct.
the fees the town's going to collect? So we're just paying ourselves effectively from
so
the trust fund?
it's coming out of the trust fund and go into the general fund where the fees
Right, so-
would normally have gone.
Right, so it's offset somehow from the Soldier On project, okay. And then, I understand, I agree with the point about precedent, and I respect what my colleagues are saying. I have no disagreement there, and I also agree with our previous work for the $500,000 that we have granted this project, and I agree with that amount, in the previous conversations that we've had. I think, I know that this project doesn't necessarily prioritize Tewksbury veterans because it can't under state law. That's not allowed under any housing project, so you can't do that anyway. The nature of creating this doesn't give a preference to local residents. Our veterans will still have as early access as anybody else as long as they apply early. And they went over that, but they can't promise that to us because it's verboten. So I appreciate all of the previous comments that my colleagues have made. I feel that this amount is de minimis relative to the cost and relative to the amount that we have in our fund, and I think it's, I think it's an opportunity that we can take, so I still support it. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, if there's no further questions, are there any motions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the waiver of these fees as long as they, not to exceed $76,000. And if it's permittable in the same motion to make that transfer, to grant a transfer from the Affordable Housing Trust to the town's general fund to cover the said fees.
Okay, so the motion's offered by Ms. Wellman. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, the motion has been seconded by Mr. Kratman. I can't do a voice vote, so I'll start with you, Mr. Kratman. All those in favor, actually, excuse me, Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Mackey?
No.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland? No. And I'm voting against, so that would be 3 votes opposed, 2 in favor. Motion fails. Okay. Let's move to board member reports for the next 10 or 12 minutes. Mr. Holland, do you have anything?
I have nothing, sir.
Ms. Wellman?
Sure. So this is, February marks Black History Month. The library has put on some information. The DEI committee put out some information with Nancy Reed and the police department on the first African-American police officer in Tewksbury. There's a sound that's squeaking. It's totally distracting me at the moment. So I don't know what it is. So I was very grateful to the school department for helping us to distribute that, and the library as well. NIMCOG has been conducting strategy sessions. That work is continuing. They were supposed to host an at-home in Greater Lowell Affordable Housing Regional Conference today. That was canceled for the invisible snowstorm. And so I was planning to attend that, and I've been asked to serve on the steering committee for that group as well, so I will look forward to that work getting going. I want to thank the board for their work approving the Pride Picnic, June 2nd. Work will be started on that to bring in food truck vendors and ask folks to save the date. And I met with the City of Lowell cultural offices to partner with them on some of their work, and they were really excited about the work that we're doing here. So that was a very positive meeting between the communities, and my pleasure to meet with those folks. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Mackey, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I just want to reiterate the March 10th fundraiser, a few events coming up. So March 10th fundraiser for Soldier On, Wamisit Lanes, as well as 2 events for Tewksbury Youth Baseball, one on March 23rd and one on March 29th, as they raise funds to bring the Cal Ripken tournament to town. So wanted to help get that word out. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Kratman, do you have any reports?
Yes, I do. We had the LRTA meeting recently.
Thank you.
Oh.
Camera froze.
He's frozen.
It's frozen.
I'm sorry, just went out. And one of the things that we just, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just went out for a second. So we extended his contract for the next 5 years. As part of that, we also discussed expansion of routes in different areas, and especially Tewksbury. So there's a discussion about creating additional services to our community, and we're going to have a sit-down meeting shortly. I'm going to have the executive director come over and meet with the town manager and a DPW director and a town engineer to discuss improvements to our community.
Very good. Anything further, Mr. Kratman?
No, that's
Okay.
it. Thank you.
All right. I just want to note 2 items. I want to congratulate the police department on finally securing their certification or accreditation. That's quite an accomplishment. I know it was a multi-year process and a lot of effort went into that. Very impressive. A lot to be proud of here in Tewksbury. I've seen recognition of that in other communities as well. So I want to, again, commend the police department and its leadership for getting that over the finish line, and for all of the officers of the police department who actually have to implement the policies and the requirements that were developed on a daily basis to make that a reality. I also want to remind residents that the town's planning director is holding, for lack of a better term, office hours or public sessions to answer questions about anything in the community development realm. And those meetings will continue through the early spring before a town meeting. And they've been attended by a number of residents in the last month or so. But folks often have questions about our zoning and our planning efforts. And that's an opportunity to do that in an informal session on a one-on-one basis with the town's planning coordinator. So I invite residents to continue to meet with her, and I want to thank Alex Lauder for making herself available and putting in the extra time to answer questions for residents. And that's all I have. So that kind of rounds out everything other than the scheduled items and the enterprise funds and capital budget presentation, which I assume the town manager can't accomplish in 7 minutes. So,
Give it a try.
so the chair's going to declare a recess until 7 PM sharp, and then we will take up our first public hearing. back of the room. So we're going to call the meeting back to order. We have a 7 o'clock public hearing scheduled pertaining to Eco Auto LLC. Someone in the room present from Eco Auto, I invite them to come up here and sit with us while I read the public hearing notice. That notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a public hearing in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, on Tuesday, February 13, 2024, at 7 p.m. on the application of Eco Auto LLC by Michelle and Al Salas on a new Class 1 license, formerly a Class 2 license, located at 623 Main Street in Tewksbury, Massachusetts. The hearing will be held in the Select Board's meeting room in Town Hall, 1009 Main Street in Tewksbury. We always welcome input from the public, and we recommend that comments be submitted in writing in advance of the meeting, preferably by Thursday, February 8. My colleagues all have the tombstone ad that was placed as legal notice dated 1/31/24, and you also have the actual class application that was provided by the applicant, and the attendant information that comes with that. So let me first welcome you both to the table. If I could ask you to just speak into the microphone and introduce yourselves, so our recording secretary can capture that information for the record, I appreciate it.
My name is Michelle Salas.
And I'm Al Salas.
Welcome to you both. It's good to see you again. You were here not too long ago, if I remember right. So-
Yeah.
So I think the members of the board understand the crux of what you're asking for, but for the people who might be behind you or watching on TV, can you just explain a little bit about the request and what you're trying to accomplish with your business?
Absolutely. So right now, our special permit was for a Class 2 license for pre-owned hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles. And business has been going really well, amazing, actually. The community has responded really well, the market in general. There are lots of government incentives right now in Massachusetts. For example, you can get up to $10,000 back on an EV, and that's on the pre-owned side. There's an opportunity that we are pursuing both on the commercial and on the consumer side, and that's regarding electric fleet vehicles. And we've obtained a partnership for distribution here in the New England market. What we're seeking with this transition is to be able to continue to expand on that mission that we have to lower the barrier to entry to sustainable transportation, whether that's EVs, hybrids, plug-ins. But at the end of the day, we want to continue to drive down carbon footprint of transportation, and we see an opportunity to enter into the commercial market. DPW, all kinds of state and government departments, as well as companies. And we have already everything in line to make that happen. We just need the permission of the board and the town to make it, so.
So your intention is will it be to exclusively sell fleet, or would it be, do you have any intention to sell on a one-off basis to a consumer
Consumers as well.
as well?
Yes.
Both.
So
Okay.
it will be both commercial and consumers.
Terrific. All right, do my colleagues have any questions of the applicants? No? Okay, I want to commend you. That was a property that needed some improvement, and you've been a great addition to the town as we drive by there, and I'm glad to hear that business has been going well for you. That's a good sign, so we
Thank you.
appreciate that. So with that, let me ask if there's any motions to approve the request.
So moved.
Second?
For the record, Mr. Mackey offered the motion, Ms. Wellman seconded the motion. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote, sir?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland? Aye. And I will certainly vote in the affirmative, so that's a 5-0 vote. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
very much.
All right.
Thank
We're
you.
going to continue to do the work.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a
All the
great
best.
night.
Thank you. Okay. The next hearing is scheduled for 7:10. As you can see, it's 7:05, so we are going to have to wait 5 more minutes for the next item.
Do public comment? Oh, great. Patrick? Yep.
Okay, the clock in the back of the hall says 7:10, so we're going to move forward with our next item on the agenda, and that is a change of manager request for MHF Tewksbury Operating Tenant 7 LLC. That's quite a mouthful, doing business as Hilton Garden Inn. Is there someone here from the Hilton Garden Inn? Just come on forward. Don't mind, just introduce yourself to us so we know who you are.
Sure. My name is Sharon Shaughnessy.
Sharon, welcome. I think if I understand what's going on here, you're going to take over being the day-to-day manager at the hotel, is that right?
Correct, for the time being, yes.
Very good. Can you tell the board a little bit about your background in the industry?
Sure. I have been a general manager at 3 local places over the last 15 years. I've also been on a liquor license as well. And I'm tip certified, which is,
That helps too. That's me. I apologize. If you're at home and you couldn't hear me, I had my mic off, so I apologize for that. Okay, so you're tip certified, and you've been in the business for a little while. Are you already working there?
yeah, I have actually been there for almost a year.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Do my colleagues have any questions?
I just have one. Have
Mr.
you had
Holland?
any violations in the past?
No.
Okay. That's one of my main concerns.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Operationally, you're the manager of the hotel.
So my current position right now is Director of Sales
Okay.
over there. I've been there. We are without a general manager at the time being, but the transition should help in the next couple weeks, I would think.
Okay, and where our alcohol is sold at the restaurant and bar that's in the facility, is that correct?
Yep, we have the restaurant, the bar. We also have a permit we have a small outside patio, and we have almost 3,000 square feet of banquet space that we could have banquet bars also.
Is there a restaurant manager as well?
At the time, there is not.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Is that the plan for, they're just
Yes.
staffing into?
Yes, it is an open position
Okay.
right now.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anybody else? Don't be bashful, we have 3 more minutes. Okay. All right, I don't have any further questions, so it looks like all the information that's required has been presented, and the application has been reviewed by our town staff. If there are no other concerns on the part of the board, I'll ask for a motion to approve the request for the change of manager.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second that.
Okay, the motion's offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Kratman. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
And I'll vote in the affirmative as well. So you can leave here with a 5-0 vote.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you. Okay, unfortunately, we're going to have to wait another 2 minutes or so before we can begin our 7:15 hearing.
Excuse me, sir. I think the video, the public video is not working. I'm hearing from people trying to watch from home.
Okay, well, the person in the back of the room who really controls that hopefully just heard that comment. Because there's nothing I can do about that.
Are they on the right cable channel?
We have 2 Comcast channels down, we don't know why. It's not on our,
I know, I got that
Be
notification.
weather related, okay.
there was no weather.
Mr. Chairman, they can tune in through YouTube TV for Tewksbury, though.
Tewksbury TV?
Correct. So if anyone's having an issue, they can go to YouTube, put in Tewksbury TV, and they can see it live that way.
There you go. It's always a way. This can be signed.
Okay. Other people are able to watch it, so. Okay, here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
James. Okay, I have 7:15 in the room. And our next item is a hearing request by Cara Ryan Corporation, DBA TJ Callahan's Pub, located at 1475 Main Street. This is an entertainment license public hearing. I would invite representatives of TJ Callahan's to come forward if you're in the room. Thank you. I'm going to read the public hearing notice. That notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, February 13, 2024, at 7:10 PM on the application of Cara Ryan, doing business as TJ Callahan's Pub, located at 1475 Main Street in Tewksbury, by Don Callahan, manager, for an additional entertainment license consisting of live bands performing annually on New Year's Eve and St. Patrick's Day. Entertainment will be during the hours of 1 PM to 12:30 AM. Hearing will be held in the Select Board's Meeting Room, 1009 Main Street, in Tewksbury. We always welcome input from the public, and we recommend comments be in writing on or before Thursday, February 8. In this instance, my colleagues should have a butters list that received notification of this hearing. They should also have a copy of the tombstone notice that was filed and published on January 31st, 2024, relative to this hearing. So let me welcome the two of you, and if you would do us a favor and just introduce yourselves so we can capture that for the record, I'd appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Don Callahan, owner of TJ Callahan's.
Welcome.
Tim Callahan, manager.
Welcome. Good to see you both. You want to just talk a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish here? I think this has been a request that you've made in the past, if I recall.
Yeah, every once in a while it comes up on the days that we don't have an entertainment license. Our entertainment license runs Wednesday through Saturday, and we do not have one on Sunday, and St. Patrick's Day falls on the Sunday this year. So we're requesting more of an entertainment license that day.
Got it. Okay.
And now it'll happen probably for the next 4 years until it hits Wednesday again.
Yeah. Okay. And in the past, have the hours that you've requested been consistent with what you're asking for now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, let me ask if my colleagues have specific questions of the applicant.
I have a quick question.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you very much. It's nice to see you again. Quickly, what is, your request is for 1 PM to 12:30 AM? Is that for both St. Patrick's Day and New Year's Day, or New Year's Eve? Excuse me?
Yeah.
Just so tell me a little bit about what your program is.
Well,
I think-
normally on St. Patrick's Day, we have an acoustic guy who will play in the afternoon, then we have a band at night. And because it's falling on the Sunday, I don't have the entertainment license. And we'd like to follow the same thing we've been doing for the last 17 years.
Right, so you have an acoustic player and often dancing and so forth from Irish step dancers, I think I've.
And the Irish step
Yeah,
dancers,
they do a
yes.
nice job, yeah. The local dancers, the young ladies are great and fun to watch. And this is all indoors, is that correct?
Yes,
There's
absolutely.
no outdoor component to any of this,
And no outdoor.
just to make that clear for the public. Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members of the board have questions? Okay. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the room who wants to speak to this particular item? No? Okay. I will note for the record, and my colleagues have received this, we got 2 letters on this matter. One from Mr. and Mrs. Frank Carenti at 85 Serena Way. I'm not sure if you folks are aware of these, but it's important that you be aware of them. And the Carentis are expressing concern about, they're not in disagreement with the effort to enhance its revenue by offering live band entertainment on the 2 holidays. They do disagree with the level of amplification live bands have used in the past. Is it really necessary to amplify the music so loud that it can be heard in neighboring residential homes with their windows closed? While the patrons of TJ Callahan's may prefer late-night loud and boisterous music, it's wrong to expect neighbors not to be able to sleep and enjoy the peaceful comforts of home. So they're asking that the board consider putting a limitation on the amplification of live band music. We also got a letter dated January 27, 2024. This is from the Serena Woods Condo Association itself. And they're expressing similar comments that sound levels in the late hours and over weekends are challenging. So I want to make that known so the public has the benefit of that. I want to thank the Carentis and the Condo Association. There's not a name associated with this letter other than the association itself, but their comments have been noted. I know in the past you've made great effort to work with the neighbors, and I trust that you will continue to do so. As Serena Woods is a newer development across the street, it may be that you haven't had the same opportunity to get to know those folks like you have in a more immediate surrounding area. But I know from my experience sitting at this table that before your ownership, there was a long history of concern. And you've had a pretty good track record, at least in my opinion, of being responsive to the neighbors' concerns, and I want to commend you for that. So hopefully that communication is of some benefit to you as you move forward.
Yeah, they never even said anything to us, so this is the first I'm hearing it. I mean, if they had come over and approached us, I would have got a decibel meter,
Yeah.
figured it all out. And that's what we did before. We had decibel meters and
Yeah.
checking the sound and all that for like a whole month when we took it over
Yeah.
because all the complaints.
So
But they haven't approached us yet.
the letters are in the board's packet. That's a public document. You can get those. If you have trouble, you can contact the town manager's office, and they can get you those 2 letters, and you can maybe reach out to those residents and speak
Definitely.
with them. Okay? All right. Any other questions or concerns on the part of the board? If not, I'll ask for any motions that my colleagues wish to offer.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the entertainment license for Kara Ryan doing business as TJ Callahan's Pub.
Second.
Second.
All right, so the motion's offered by Ms. Wellman, seconded by Mr. Mackey. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
I'm going to vote in the affirmative as well, so that's 5-0. So thank you very much
Thank you
for
very
being
much. We
here.
appreciate it.
Good luck with that. Okay. Let me give you that when you have a second. All right, we managed to get to 7:20, which is our next hearing. So I am going to read the legal notice, and I will ask representatives of 133 Cannabis to come forward while I do that, and we'll move into the next hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a public hearing in accordance with Select Board Regulation Article 37, marijuana retail sales license policies and regulations, on February 13, 2024 at 7 PM at Town Hall, 1009 Main Street in Tewksbury, on the application of Route 133 Cannabis for a license to operate as a marijuana retailer on premises located at 1625 Andover Street, Tewksbury, Massachusetts, consisting of an area of approximately 6,100 square foot building. Input is welcome from the public, and the Select Board recommends that comments be submitted in writing on or before noontime on Thursday, February 8. As I've noted in other hearings, the board members have received a copy of the abutters list who were notified, and the tombstone notice that was dated January 24 of this year. So let me first welcome those of you at the table in front of me and ask you both to introduce yourselves for the record. Sure.
Good evening. Dean Graffio, 52 Pinnacle Street. I'm the president of 133 Cannabis.
Caitlin Woodward Sampson, partner in Route 133 Cannabis and senior vice president of Gold Standard Consulting.
All right, thank you both and welcome. All right. Okay, so before I ask you to give us some background and speak to your application, let me set the table. I'm going to guess there are a number of people in the room who are here and interested in this topic, just from past experience and following the actions of the process that we have followed. And I'll just explain a couple things so everybody is on a level playing field this evening. First and foremost, this board took action a few weeks back and decided that we would close the application process. So the process that we are working through right now has a previous applicant that we have heard from. And this evening, we will hear from 133 Cannabis. But we are not taking any further applications for the third and final cannabis retail license that the town has to manage or distribute. We previously have awarded 2 other licenses, and under the statutes that exist, the town was allotted a total of 3. We do not intend to take a vote this evening. We previously decided that at our first meeting in March, which I believe is March 12, we will then take action on one of actually 3 possible actions. We could say we're not going to approve any of the 2 licenses and leave the 3rd license empty, if you will, or we could approve the prior applicant, or we could approve potentially this applicant. But no action will be taken this evening, so I want everyone to be clear on that. Our intention is to listen and learn like everyone else, and absorb the information. We've had the benefit of written material that's been submitted, but we also have the need to hear what the applicant has to say and educate us, and certainly to potentially answer any questions that the board members may have. Because this is a public hearing, we will also entertain any concerns, questions, observations that anyone in the room has, and we'll do that in an orderly fashion. I'm going to ask you to go to the microphone at the podium. I'm going to ask you for your name and address so we can record that information, and we'll give you 3 minutes to speak to the issue or concern that you might have. We're going to do that hopefully in an orderly way so that we can all get to the information that we want. And I'd ask you just to be direct and to the point. And hopefully we can make it through that process without much difficulty. We're here to learn and listen, at least at this side of the table. And then ultimately, I know my 4 colleagues and I will consider all of the information that we've taken in this process that began many months ago when we learned about cannabis licensing. And then the town, through town meeting, approved the use of retail licensing to allow for these types of businesses in our community. And then as the licensing authority, this board was charged with determining who should get licenses in the community. So we're 2/3 of the way through that process, but we have a little bit more work to do, and it won't be put to rest this evening. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. We'll hear from the applicant. We'll ask my colleagues if they have questions, and then I'll ask anyone in the room if they have particular questions. And I'm also going to note, I have 4 or 5 letters here that I'll speak to after we get through with the applicant's presentation. All right, so with that said, let me turn it over to you 2, and you can speak to us about what you intend to do, what you're proposing, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds good. So I've lived in Tewksbury 47 years, since the age of 7. I've raised my family here. I'm an active member of the community, both personally and professionally. I run a business here currently. I care about this town. If I am selected, I would be the only Tewksbury resident picked to run a retail cannabis store. Since I last appeared before you last summer, I took feedback, reassessed, and composed a totally new proposal than my first bid. I found a new location to lease in a newly zoned part of town, and a new partner who has extensive experience and will be a 9.9% equity partner in my business. I was encouraged when town voted to add more zones to allow cannabis retail at the special town meeting in October. When it passed, I researched property in the commercial district along 133 to see which buildings or land might be available. I knew the site from before that had been approved for a restaurant previously, but it did not pan out. I explored this this site before as a liquor store, so I reapproached it and talked to the owner. I found that 1625 Andover was available for lease. The costs for this project include a fit-out of a retail space, hiring our employees, security system, inventory, lease payments, and startup costs. Our anticipated budget is $650,000 to $700,000. We have a $1.5 million line of credit from Gold Standard. My landlord will be constructing the building and will be charging me a lease and has no ownership role in my business. We anticipate and optimistic we can open our business by the end of this calendar year if we were able to submit to the Cannabis Control Commission on a timely manner and the developer can get building without any delays. As a local business owner in town already, I run a highly regulated business where I sell lottery, alcohol, and cigarettes. I feel that cannabis retail is a very similar state-regulated business that I'll be able to transition into with the help of my partnership. I also know the value of community. We are committed to hiring Tewksbury residents and continue to evolve our community service initiative, Route 133 Cares. Our campaign to empower our employees to take paid time off to volunteer for Tewksbury nonprofits. I will also continue my personal and company commitment to make contributions to local community service and charitable organizations. We are also exploring a new trend in the industry to provide stock options to our employees as well. Over the course of the last several months, we have worked to engage and listen to the concerns of our abutters and neighbors, each time sending mailings to invite them into the process to hear their concerns. First one was on Tuesday, November 21st. 8 people attended. We held another one on Thursday, January 18th with the neighborhood meeting. 10 people attended. Both of these meetings were held at the Hilton Garden Inn on Andover Street. We have now appeared 3 times in front of the planning board for site plan review on Monday, December 18th, Monday, January 8th, and again last night. Each time the public was invited to offer comment and we took their concerns seriously and have made substantial changes and accommodations. We have considered the concerns of our neighbors and made modifications to our site, including landscaping on the right-hand side of the property to block the view from the learning experience, right turn only out on Route 133 from our entrance to lessen traffic heading toward Lowell, lowering the footprint from 4,500 to 4,100 square feet to help alleviate traffic, right turn only out of our rear exit to give customers 2 options to exit our parking lot, signage, ground markings, and groove pavement to ensure customers turn right only, parking lot monitors to ensure traffic flow and no loitering, accepted all the recommendations of the traffic peer review process. We are updating our plans to include more detailed landscaping on the side of the property that faces TLE, and our willingness to coordinate with TLE to avoid their peak afternoon rush period per the suggestion of the planning board last night. We already avoid learning the TLE morning rush because we won't open till 10 a.m. And the TLE is not open on weekends. We anticipate that our site review plan, after providing new renderings with landscaping and talking with the TLE, should hopefully have approval at the next planning board meeting, February 26th. And now I'd like to introduce my business partner, Caitlin, to give an overview of our operations. After Caitlin presents, we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Caitlin has more than 19 years of experience in leading retail business with a prominent focus on operational excellence and sustainable growth. Over the last 4 years, Caitlin has opened and operated 11 cannabis retail locations in both recreational and medical market here in Massachusetts. She has served in roles as a general manager for one cannabis company and vice president for retail of another. She has taken her expertise in the cannabis space and launched Gold Standard Consulting Services, where a team of industry leaders help numerous cannabis operators become successful in all aspects of their operation. And now I'll turn this over to Caitlin.
Thank you, Dean. So as Dean has said, my name is Caitlin Woodward Sampson. I am the lead at Gold Standard Consulting Services. We help many operators in the state in many different aspects of their operation. Most of them are operational already. We help them with strategizing, business plans, sustainable growth, and those types of things. This will be the first time that we've taken on an equity stake partner with a 9.9. It's not usually part of our business plan, but after meeting Dean, hearing his business proposal, looking at the site, looking at its ability to pull in customer base and just him as an operator, I felt really confident and to say to him that we will be a great partnership and that we've signed a contract for 3 years. So these are not set it and forget it operations. It's imperative that we look and analyze every day of the business and that we adapt as we grow. So we won't just be helping them with compliance. We're helping them with store operations, we're helping them with inventory procurement, we're analyzing the market, we're doing SWOT analysis for all of our competitors to make sure that we're on trend. We have opportunities. We are not a vertically integrated operation, right? So how do you compete with that? There's ways that you can do that if you're a smart operator and have a partner that knows how to procure product and how to present it to the consumer in a safe and compliant manner. We are looking to service up to 350 customers a day. That is probably our peak that we will ever service. The way that we analyze our customers is that we look at our organic customer flow and our inorganic customer flow. Our organic customer flow are going to be the people that naturally drive by the dispensary on Andover Street. I indicate that we'll pull about 1% of those customers out of the convenience. We are now part of their drive-by traffic, and they may not drive by another dispensary, so we're going to capture them from that convenience perspective. Then we're looking at putting together a marketing strategy that will help capture inorganic customers, the people that you need to market to in order for them to know that we're here and to pull them in. So you look at the industry, you look at how many customers there are, 1 in 5 consume cannabis. Our potential is about 166 customers that we may be able to pull off of the 495s based off of the Mass DOT at that 94,000 cars that travel per day. So our peak will be just about 350 if we are exceptional operators and are not right for them to shop with us. Our peak hours of operation are going to be between 4 and 6 on weekdays, and will be spread out the majority of the day on the weekends. They're not just going to come in and rush at those times. We become more of a travel by, part of a destination type of store. We have traffic lot attendants to ensure that the traffic flow in and out of our parking lot is fluid. It is one of our most important touch points. A touch point is where you have the opportunity to lose a customer. That can be your parking lot, it could be at check-in, it could be engaging with a bud tender, leaving the parking lot. At any point in that time, your interaction with a consumer can get disrupted, and they may decide to shop other places. So for us, the ease of entering and exiting our parking lot is the most imperative thing that we look at, because if it's not convenient to pull into, it's not easy and accessible, the odds of them coming back are pretty slim to none. Nobody wants the headache of chaos and mayhem, right? So we are planning to do a soft opening. We're not doing grand openings. You know, gone are the days where you open your doors, you have all those things in your parking lot and those types of things. In cannabis, it's pretty common to do a soft opening. Allow us to open the doors and service natural consumers, and then earn the right to capture consumers that may be shopping other places. We are looking to make $8 million gross in the first 3 years. These numbers account for a growth strategy, so it's not going to be based off of just throwing numbers and saying that we're going to hit those. We look at a couple of different factors. What is our potential customers? How do we market to new customers? And how do we achieve a 1.5 customer return rate to ensure that the customer experience is there, that they're constantly coming in and shopping with us, that we're not losing those consumers to other operators? The way that we're going to be marketing, unfortunately in cannabis, we cannot operate like a standard retailer, so we can't just put signs everywhere. The regulations are pretty clear in how we can market our product and who we can market them to. We have a very, we follow all the rules and regulations that the Cannabis Commission puts out there. We will market our business. We can only be successful if we do so. We will do that on social media platforms with appropriate age gates and how we communicate. We will have listings on Weedmaps and Leafly, which are also approved cannabis marketing platforms that also are age gated to ensure that no one over the age of 21 is visiting that website. We will do word of mouth marketing. We will do traffic driving campaigns. We will have an SEO optimization strategy to ensure that our Google Analytics are at the forefront. We will have competitive analysis to make sure that we are on trend with all of our competitors as well as the vertically integrated growers. And we will also have our service. And service is the most important. We have a signature experience that we will portray in our store. We want to be the dispensary where anyone and everyone feels okay to come in, even if they do not purchase. even if they just have questions and want to have a conversation. We welcome those people into our dispensary to help with the education piece. We deal with stigma every day. Our operation deals with stigma every day. I want people to be able to come inside and say, what is this? And not be afraid of entering the building. We want to be a good neighbor. In the event that we are the best operators in the state and that we are seeing more cars than we had originally anticipated, we have 44 spots. That's ample parking to service, even at the peak of the TIE analysis, to handle that type of flow of traffic. So, but if it ever becomes a point in time and we say to ourselves it's disruptive, every one of our employees, every parking lot attendant, every security attendant, and every single manager has the ability to communicate in real time, in the moment, to handle all situations. They get addressed immediately, and in the event that we have a problem, we will have a great partnership with local authorities, as well as the ability to ban people from coming into our building. We have a zero nuisance policy. We do not allow anything to happen in our parking lot, period. So we have the ability to, we want to mitigate traffic. We encourage our employees. We give them in our welcome packet, we give them kind of notice on how you can get to work. You can drive, we will pay for public transportation, we will reimburse for ride shares. We want our employees to be able to get to work on time and not be disruptive. If they can take a bus, fantastic, we'll pay for your bus pass. That alleviates that cost, and it also helps with our ability to have more spots. We look at our data daily. Every single day we look at our traffic data. Every single day I want to know how many people came in, what hours did they come in, why are they not coming in those hours, so we can analyze and pivot and address those appropriately. We can limit it's BOPUS, buy online, pick up in store orders, to not be allowed during peak travel time. 60% of our transactions are BOPUS, buy online, pick up in store. So if we just say during the hours of 4 and 6, we aren't going to allow those people to come in and schedule a time for that, that's going to take 60% of our customer flow and disperse it into the other non-peak areas of time. We also have an express pickup, which will allow a customer to come in and go right out, so that way they're not lagged down. And we have no loitering everywhere. No, our parking lot attendants will keep the customer flow, keep the people moving. If they're getting in their car and they're looking like they're getting on a conversation or opening a sandwich, don't do that here, you can do it somewhere else. Security. All of our security measures are 100% compliant within the regulation. All of our security are trained in-house. They are trained on all aspects of the operation. They have any type of situation, they know exactly the how-to guide on how to handle it, who to handle it, how to go about it. We go through de-escalation techniques. We take partners with our training platform that we've put into place. I come from a long lineage of cops in my family, so some home feedback on how to handle certain situations have all been put into our training for our security. And at the end of the day, it's customer service. You just ask, what can I do to make this right? How do we find common ground? And how do we ensure that we both leave happy and keep our days moving on fluidly? No one can get inside of the facility without a two-step verification process of their IDs. In this location, we will be using an MSeeker 280 ID check. It is not one that you can just scan. It's a physical device that inserts the card into to check the validity of the ID. At any point in time, a ID cannot be scanned because it is broken or those things. That is no longer a valid ID and will not be taken up the dispensary, and that they would have to leave. Cameras cover every inch of the facility where we can monitor the full interior as well as the full exterior. That we will provide a login to the police, so at any point in time they need to access footage to the dispensary, they will have the ability to do it in real time. Our lighting in our parking lot, it will be well illuminated to ensure that there are no blind spots, but it won't be too illuminated that will affect the neighbors. Like I said, we had a zero tolerance nuisance policy, and that anybody that violates it will be banned from the facility. And we want to be a great partner with the local authorities. We want them to come on site, to learn the facility, to have the ability to come in and do walkthroughs. We come in and see how we operate. When it comes to the Cannabis Commission, I take great pride in partnering with the Cannabis Commission. We have no secrets. We want to make sure that we are successful operators and that we put things into place such as we have compliance binders, which is everything the Cannabis Commission could ever want to look at any point in time. We separate it by month and we keep them tabbed so they can easily access all the information that they could possibly need to see. I'd like to say that some of my partners have never had an NOD, but these are operators and people make mistakes. I've never had a major notice of deficiency, but there has been a time where someone had forgotten to change the video cameras for daylight savings, which was issued of an NOD. So we've put policies into place to prevent that from happening. How will we get our product? We're not a vertically integrated grow. Luckily, Gold Standard Consulting has a bi-group partnership where we have various members throughout the state of Massachusetts that have committed to a pricing strategy and structure that will allow us to procure and curate product that can be competitive from a pricing perspective. So we'll be able to pull in vast amounts of inventory. We'll go anywhere from 150 to 250 SKUs. Those will be ever revolving. We'll have staple SKUs that won't go out of stock based off of our SWOT analysis and what the consumer is requesting. And then we will ensure that our price is competitive to the industry. Our staffing. We will start with anywhere from 11 to 15 employees that will grow as our sales grow. We anticipate leveling out anywhere between 24 and 32 employees. Our rate of pay will be between $16 and $20 an hour, depending on job responsibilities. Salaries and management will be based on experience and will be determined during the interview process. We look to hire not only Tewksbury residents, but also residents that have been identified as part of the disproportionately impacted areas, which is part of our positive impact plan, which will also be Lowell residents. I'm not looking to bring in every person that has experience in cannabis. This is an opportunity to learn a new industry. We take great pride in training people that may have great customer service backgrounds in this regulated industry, so that way we can actually fill the pool with more operators in the state. We want to give back to the community. Community outreach is very important to our process. We want to give back by doing community cleanups. We run food drives. We've done clothing drives. We've done tip drive donations. And we've done educational seminars within the dispensaries. And I am aware that one of the biggest complaints is the learning experience, which will be one of our neighbors. We have reached out to another company, Netta, which is one of the biggest operators in the state, who actually shares a parking lot. Well, they share 8 parking spots with Netta. There's the child care center, the Little Children's School in Brookline. They're about 5 times closer than we are, and we wanted to anticipate, what issues did you have? Are there any issues? And they replied that the only issues that they had was parking at first, but they addressed that with Netta, and Netta moved parking off-site. She said that there were no issues with safety or security and did not report any uptick in crime. She said that they are good neighbors and they have had no problems. And she said that there has been no reduction in their business as a result. So for us, we want to be a good neighbor. We want to address all of the concerns, which is why we've put so much effort in our planning board process.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. I have a number of questions, but I'm going to let my colleagues ask theirs first, and maybe I'll cross a few off as we go. So, Mr. Kratman, can I start with you? You have any questions, sir?
Yep, thank you very much. We reviewed a number of these applications, and one of my number one concerns is always traffic mitigation. I understand about the parking. I've seen these establishments and where you may have ample parking. Parking is helpful, but it's not really a true thing. People tend to come in and out of these places very quickly. So parking spots become available very quickly. It's more of the traffic going in and out of the driveways and cutting across. So I know that section of roadway does have the ability to handle a little bit extra traffic because it is a little bit wider than some areas. But in case this does increase to more significant traffic than you're expecting, have you talked about any mitigation that you may be willing to do if traffic is more than expected? And did you discuss any of this with the planning board when you went in for their comments?
Yeah, the traffic engineer had made a suggestion that we put a traffic mitigation plan and have it signed off with the local police department. We are in that process. We have had those conversations. We've also widened our driveway to 24 feet as opposed to 20 feet to allow that radius to be an easier turn in and out, which will help with that flow of traffic, as well as converted everything into a right turn only so that there's nobody trying to cross over anybody, so it comes in and it goes out that way.
So you haven't received acceptance from the planning board yet, is that correct?
No, we have not. We do anticipate having that on the 26th. Once we put together another plan in place to show them some of the initial site review, adding the strips so that people know that you can't go out. Maybe an employee is not available to come up and say no. So if they run over those strips, they'll be like, oh, wait, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And then once we do that, we'll go for a vote.
That's really a main concern. This is a busy section of roadway. A lot of people go, I know you're near the highway, and a lot of people be coming on and off. And I know there are a lot of other locations that are off the highway as well. So it should disperse some of the traffic, but it's still going to be a high volume. And, I'd like to see something, that says that in case if you were granted and the traffic impacted significantly and started impacting the residents that live in that area, because I know there's a lot of homes, I know there's a lot of houses near there, and for them to get in and out of their driveways, I wouldn't want to grant a business license to one and hamper all the residents at the same time. So any efforts to put any mitigation plans in and have them approved by the planning board, I'd be very happy to see prior to granting approval. No, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Crabman. Mr. Mackey, can I turn to you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a couple of questions. First of all, you actually answered one of mine, which is about the volunteerism. So glad to hear that you guys are going to have paid hours for volunteering in town. The questions around traffic and planning board, Mr. Crabman already hit, so I don't need to touch those. I apologize, could you remind me of your name again?
Caitlin.
Caitlin, thank you. I don't see you listed as an owner on here. And I do see Gold Standard Consulting. So are you the owner of Gold Standard Consulting?
Yeah, so that's the business that I started and operated.
Okay. So yeah, we might need some updating then, because if you have a 9.9% ownership, that's not on here. So that's probably a good addition. Otherwise, I'm sure we will hear from residents. I think the concerns are going to be around the proximity to kindergarten or the pre-K. I know it's not legally a state school, but that is, I think, going to be a piece for concern for me personally. Otherwise, you have what appears to be a complete package, save for that first page that needs to be updated. And I have no additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, let me turn to my right. Ms. Wellman, do you have questions?
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. It's a pleasure to see both of you before us. I'm always encouraged by folks who want to open new businesses in Tewksbury. And Mr. Graffio, you have an excellent reputation for the business you do run in town, as well as all the community service you've given to the community. I want to acknowledge that publicly.
Thank you.
It is, you have many years of service to your community. I think you are well-known here for the work that you do. So I have a few questions. One, can you describe the relationship between Gold Standard Consulting and your firm and McMahon Strategic Development?
Come on up. Before you you say anything else, please give us your name for the record, okay?
Sure. My name is James McMahon, President and Founder of McMahon Strategic Development. I work with Caitlin and Gold Standard, and I'm also the attorney for Route 133 Cannabis.
Okay. So you're counsel?
Yes.
Okay. How is Mr. Plunkett also counsel?
Mr.
Land
Plunkett.
use?
For daily holdings, for site,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, for the land
So,
use.
yeah, he represents the property owner and the developer. I represent
you.
the license holder.
Thank you. This is what I'm looking for. All right, great. I've read your proposal. I concur that the information here is complete. 44 parking spaces. You may have 32 employees, but certainly they won't be there all at the same time. What do you
no.
anticipate staffing with on a regular shift?
Anywhere from 6 to 12 potentially. It depends on traffic flow and what we need,
Yeah.
which is why we're going to encourage them to take public transportation if they can.
And there is public transportation that goes right by there.
Yeah.
So that's great. I noted that, so the real concern that I have, and well, I'll get to that one in a minute. Tell me a little bit more about your advertising plan. You mentioned social media, various industry-specific websites, your SEO plan.
Yep.
What, do you plan on billboards or anything like that?
Oh, well, billboards are tough. Most of the billboards are already, billboard companies only allow 2 cannabis companies per billboard. They usually sign contracts for multiple years with first right refusal, right? That is one of the only ways that we're able to really market on a big scale capacity. I don't think that billboards are going to be in our purview in the beginning. I think that that's something that we may evolve into eventually, but not right off the bat.
I'm just checking off the questions I was asking here. Okay. Bear with me. My handwriting's atrocious. So I guess the biggest concern that I've read a number of letters that have been sent to us. I'm sure you're aware, and you've heard them as well. And the biggest concern that I have as a former school committee member is this proximity you have to a preschool facility. Is read your guidance. And I noted your comment that Brookline, you reached out to a facility in Brookline. Brookline's setback is much smaller than Tewksbury's is. Theirs is 200 feet. So it's a little bit of a different setback there.
So I did the research on the Brookline establishment. Door to door is 67 feet between the two.
Okay, so they're within that setback.
Yeah, so the setback applied to K-12 schools. The daycare in Brookline actually had sued to say that they should be considered part of that setback. It was dismissed on summary judgment that they did not qualify to be counted under the setback that applied to K-12 schools. Door to door for us would be about 267 feet. So they're about 5 times closer, and they actually share a parking lot.
Yeah, she mentioned.
So that's where we were able to say, you guys are clearly one end of the bell curve in terms of proximity. What can we do to learn from your experience? What can we do to make sure that we're adaptable? And from everything that we were able to get back from the Brookline daycare, it was very smooth sailing as soon as the lawsuit had been settled and had been dismissed that they did not count as a kindergarten. Seems fences were mended very, very quickly.
Did they have kindergarten in their programming? Or are they just preschool?
They're just a preschool.
The one in Brookline? Okay.
So that was the reason, if they were a kindergarten, they would have counted towards that buffer. Since they were not a licensed kindergarten by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, that was why NETA was able to move forward there. So we did the same analysis on TLE to make sure that they were not registered as a kindergarten. We're able to find out while they do have programs that service kindergarten and school-age children under the definitions of kindergartens by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and the Cannabis Control Commission, they would not count as triggering that buffer requirement. We still want to
Do
make.
you have that opinion from the CCC?
We were able to do it off of statutory analysis. The CCC does not issue individualized opinions to any applicant. They'll always just tell you, read the regs. So the way it broke down, the regulations say if the town does not have a buffer set in statute, that the Cannabis Commission will not approve a facility within 250 feet of a school entrance. Then when you look at the way they define a school entrance, it's limited to K through 12 facilities. So we then looked online to look at the licensing for TLE. They are registered with EEC, the Early Childhood Education license, which is a preschool license, but not listed with DESE, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, as a preschool. So that's when we.
As a kindergarten.
I'm sorry, as a kindergarten, thank you. So that's where we were able to then say, let's look at that NETA lawsuit that said, does a preschool qualify as a kindergarten? And the SJC dismissed it on summary judgment, saying, no, it does not.
Okay. And I noted in our zoning bylaws, we only require the same requirement. It doesn't include places where children congregate. It does not include playgrounds. Our zoning bylaws do include playgrounds under adult use entertainment districts, but not for cannabis.
Correct.
I'm just saying it into the record, and to the best of my
And if I could
understanding.
just add something, like, nobody can see inside unless you've been verified by age. There's not going to be any type of marketing on the exterior other than a sign that we will get approved and work with the town to make sure that it's tasteful, that it's appropriate for the area, and that it just says what we are. All of our product that we bring in are in a sealed, opaque container and put in a bag, so you can't see anything inside.
I know,
Okay.
I understand.
We're also adding fencing and a vegetated buffer line between our property and
On the
TLE.
backside of the parcel.
Correct.
Okay,
To make sure that there isn't cross visibility between the two facilities.
right, because the entrances are a little far apart. Okay. I don't have any other questions at this time. I do look forward to hearing from the residents that will be here, and I'm sure we'll hear from you again. I didn't see in our materials, and I may have missed it, but an elevation of the building or a site plan. Did I miss that, folks? I didn't see it.
So we had elevations on the site plan. We can absolutely get a copy of that sent over. I think because we have been going through iterations of it to try to respond to concerns of the neighbors as well as items that have been raised by the planning board, we didn't want to submit a site plan that isn't yet finalized.
A draft is fine.
But
Yep.
what we're expecting, based off elevations, both with that vegetated buffer as well as the natural topography of the lot, that, the visibility will be from 133 inwards rather than side to side. And the facility itself is a 1.5-story building. It'll be, the retail and customer-facing facility on the ground floor with some office space for managerial uses on the top floor.
Did you plan on having an electronic sign or a static sign?
We're going to have a static sign, illuminated signage, follow the Tewksbury sign code, and then we're very restricted by the Cannabis Control Commission as to what the language on that sign can be. Can't be any images of cannabis, can't be any colloquial references to cannabis, really can just say 133 cannabis. Our marketing plan right now is to make that kind of look like an exit sign, play off the fact that we're using the street name as our name. But that would really be about it.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, Mr. Holland, do you have questions,
I
sir?
have a couple of questions, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I just wanted Caitlin to back up just a little bit. You said you had a 3.5-year contract?
3-year contract.
A 3-year contract? Now, with that 3-year contract, does the equity stay with you since when the contract is up? Do you have to sell it back to?
I'd have to ask legal on that.
Sure. So it's a 3-year term, but it is renewable. So it's earned equity up to 9.9% as various benchmarks are hit in performance. Keeps everybody honest. that, you know, Caitlin is committed and Gold Standard is committed for the long haul. It's a 3-year term to give both sides some expectation of what that runway looks like. The intent is that it'll be a long-term durable partnership, and that it'll be renewed after that initial term. We just wanted to set some definite term to what it looks like.
And that's why I asked the question, because things happen. The other question I have was, it's also for Caitlin too. In any of your previous, you said you had a couple of violations, or
Yeah, minor violations, more,
was this in one location or multiple locations?
this was in 2 different locations. We had a notice of deficiency addressing the timestamp, which was reflected, and we had a notice of deficiency based off of the way that we had labeled a product. It covered a couple of the words on the container, so we just removed the labels and relabeled that product. That was just, as you're sitting there labeling, it covered, but a deficiency is a deficiency, and we will address and make sure that we handle them appropriately.
And,
Okay.
if I can just add one thing, because I'm the one who responds to those notices of deficiency. What happens is the Cannabis Commission tells you, you know, we've identified a deficiency here. You have 10 days to respond to it and correct it. They then approve the plan of correction, and it's no longer considered a deficiency. Caitlin then updates those compliance binders she was talking about to ensure that the standard operating procedures are caught to cover that. So have never had a plan of correction not be approved, have never gone outside of that 10-day correction window, have never had a sanction, have never had a violation, have never had, which is a defined term in the regulations, have never had any sort of fine, penalty, suspension order, anything like that. A notice of deficiency is essentially a letter back and forth that say, please fix, and we say, problem solved.
Okay. I have one last question, since my colleagues asked most of the questions I was going to ask. If you're approved, what is the time frame for?
You know, if we're approved, we'd like to, you know, get this done as fast as possible. We'd like to be open by the end of the year. Obviously, I can't control the Cannabis Commission. I also can't control when holidays fall into place. So we have to make sure that we have that in mind. It usually takes about 220 days for this whole process to go through.
Okay, that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
It seems like there's a little confusion at the Cannabis Commission these days, so
Diplomatic.
I'm sure that may add to some timelines. All right, some of my questions were asked already, but can you talk to me a little bit more about your traffic or anticipated customer counts? You mentioned 350 a day. I think you said that your high point would be like 4 to 6 p.m. on weekdays.
Yep.
Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct.
So talk to me about the weekends. Are you open on Saturdays and Sundays?
We are
or
open.
just Saturdays?
The hours of operation are limited on Sundays
Yeah.
as opposed to Saturdays. Saturdays, traffic flow really does just become elongated. There's really no big peaks in the traffic counts based off of any of the operations that I have ever operated. Whereas people driving home from work, stopping, you know, picking up something before they get home, that allows that peak time where it peaks when they're traveling home, it dies down when people are, that dinner lull, I call it, is when people are home eating their dinner, and then it will go back up in that nighttime when people are out gallivanting around and doing whatever they need to.
Yeah, and Selectman Chair, I can attest to that. So at Smitty's, at the liquor store, after work, 4 to 6 is my peak hours, I would say. Saturday is spread out, so I average between 3 and 350 at the liquor store right now on Main Street. And it's spread out during the day. In the summertime, it's earlier, that's at 9, but like just in the winter, it's definitely not as early, but it just gets dispersed throughout the day.
So from on a day-to-day basis, you're saying 350 per day.
At our peak, probably.
On a Saturday, you're just saying it's going to take longer to get the same number of customers. Is that a fair assessment?
It depends, you know, it's really hard to say hypotheticals, but based off of what I've seen in the industry, you know, you open the doors, they have 17 dispensaries within a 15-mile radius to decide where they want to purchase their cannabis. We will capture what I identify as that organic traffic, the people that are coming by every day. That's where I get that 150 staple customers out of that convenience. And then we have to earn the right to capture those other people. And we have to say, why will you drive past them to come to me when we all sell very similar products? People become brand loyal, like with anything else. And we just need to identify what those products are and ensure that we offer them as well.
Okay. Just clarify for me in your written materials, and you verbally expressed it, but your target is 8 million in revenue. Is that over a 36-month period to generate the 8 million, or is it 8 million annually?
No, that's 8 million to generate, so building sustainable operations is, I don't want to sit here and commit to these astronomical numbers and put a 5-year business plan together without any type of growth strategy to take into consideration that the cost of cannabis has dropped 43% since last year, right? Now I have to sell 43% more product just to hit the same revenue numbers from last year. So this is really important that we set ourselves up for success for the long haul. That is an obtainable number that we can achieve if we follow our plan and put plans in place so we don't lose customers to competitors, that we are, that our menu offerings, that our service is there, and that the ease of entering and exiting our building is there.
So you're looking at about 2.5 to 3 million per year, right?
Which is pretty much industry standards. If you take the 330 operators and you divide it based off of the revenue that they generated last year, the average dispensary is going to fall in probably around that $4 million mark.
Okay. So give me a range of the operations that you're currently involved with in terms of high and low revenue.
So I have new operators that are in growth strategy that are servicing 70 people a day. And I have, market shared operators that have captured market share that service up to 300 customers a day. I don't have any operators that are servicing thousands of people a day. It's too much of a saturated market to pull in that. I've worked with operators that get 500-600 customers a day. They are right on a border. They are right on an intersection that's, and it happens. I know we have a great location here. We will pull from convenience off of 495, but there are other operators that are also doing the same thing as you're traveling down 495.
Okay. You explained a little bit about the ID scanners that you use. So that piqued my interest in the context of I took away the inference that was maybe a more advanced approach than maybe others use. So I'm curious, I know it's regulated and required, but is the methodology that you're following something that is proscribed, or is it something that you're going a step above?
So we like to go a step above. Anything that we can put fail-safes into place, like you can look at an ID, and IDs out there, there are smart operators. Sometimes it's very difficult to verify the validity of these IDs. We can use a book and try to reference it. We can ask zodiac signs. We can do all of those things. But the best thing to do is to validate that ID is valid, and that the only way that can be done is by putting it through a certified scanner.
All right. And is that prevalent in your other facilities?
Oh, it is, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. And then I'm just looking for clarification here. You're obviously going to be involved with the operation here. I got the impression from your opening comments or introductory comments that this was kind of a unique arrangement. So in your other relationships, can you just add some more color to that? Are they consultative?
Yeah, they're consultative and advisory, right?
Okay.
Come in, we'll do a SWOT analysis, we'll talk about the areas of opportunity, we'll put a plan in place, I'll teach them how to execute that plan, and then we'll have spot checks throughout the remainder of our contract. This is a partnership, him and I against the world. He's not getting rid of me for 3 years, so we're looking to really succeed here.
Okay. So give me a little bit more understanding of why the change in your approach? Why a partnership here?
Because of him, we've had many conversations. He's come in, he's seen some of my facilities. We've talked about the operation. He really wanted to educate himself on how to be an exceptional operator. And just based off of we fall in line, we have similar ideologies, we have a similar growth strategy, that it just kind of fell into place, and we have the bandwidth right now at Gold Standards to accommodate.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, I think my other questions were asked already, so I'm good at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I had one further question.
Okay, Ms.
When you're
Wallner?
done. Thank you. I didn't hear you address it, and I just wanted to know if you have a screened delivery area for when your product is delivered.
We don't have a
What's the plan
screened-in
for that?
delivery area.
Okay.
The intake process is relatively quick on taking product out of a van. Product is in sealed containers in vans. Product deliveries are actually relatively small because our items are relatively small. We don't fill a giant vault full of inventory. We look at pulling in 21 days of sell-through and making sure we're hitting those parameters so we have no aging inventory within the dispensary. So we get more frequent deliveries, but they are much smaller. So when they come in the van, they get unloaded, usually just in a dolly, and pulled immediately into the dispensary. The van gets shut, and a driver stays with the van in the exterior, and another support person for the delivery will come inside as we hand off that product.
You have a separate entrance for
Yeah.
delivery.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. So the way we've laid out the store is to give physical operations an ease of compliance, so that essentially people move through the store in a counterclockwise fashion. You enter on the right, your ID is verified and scanned at the door. It's then verified again on the inside. That's a Cannabis Control Commission regulation. You can't cross the threshold unless it's checked, and then you can't enter onto the sales floor unless it's checked again. You then walk to the sales floor, and then you exit on the left-hand side of the building, so there's no crossover between customers entering and customers exiting. Delivery goes around to the rear of the building to a dedicated entry door. That goes directly to a checkpoint where the cannabis is with that support person who comes from the delivery, weighed and verified on camera, checked against the manifest that's generated by the transporter. It then goes to our inventory control point, where everything is quality checked, labeled with our identifying information to identify who, what, when, where it was sold, put into our seed-to-sale tracking system. It's an open source seed-to-sale tracking system that's shared in real time with the Cannabis Control Commission, and then enters into our vault. And then, that van leaves. When Caitlin was saying frequent deliveries, what that looks like is usually about every other day. The standard delivery vehicle is a white Sprinter van, and it's usually 4 to 5 boxes of product at any given time.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, we're going to move to resident input here. Before we do that, let me ask, we have a number of letters, emails, so I'm going to try to avoid being repetitive. I'm going to ask if these individuals are in the room and if they intend to speak or not this evening, because I'm not going to read the letter if you're here to speak it. So let me ask if William M. and Lisa Wang are here. I don't see them, so I'll come back to that in a second. Pat and Jim Carter, I know are not here. Alex Pratt, Mr. Pratt, you're here? Okay, thank you. Let me set that aside. Is Scott Fink in the room?
Yes, right here.
Thank you, Scott. Sylvia Baptista? No, okay. Is Pablo Lopez here? Mr. Lopez, thank you. And how about Michelle Stella? Okay, Michelle, thank you. All right, so those of you who are in the room, I want to make sure you have an opportunity to express your opinion as opposed to having us read it. I want to assure you we received your correspondence. My colleagues all got it as well. And certainly it's part of the record, and we will certainly review that again and continue to consider that information. But you should certainly take the time to express your views in person so others in the community potentially can hear them. So I want to just note that Sylvia Baptista, who's not here, wrote, and Sylvia lives at 120 Polly's Place. and expressed that she is completely against this proposal. She has two school-age children. She's concerned about the unprecedented traffic and concerned about the fact that marijuana sales, retail marijuana sales is allowed at all in Tewksbury. Talks about the proximity to the Dewing School and adjacent, this proposed location would be adjacent to a school bus stop, and ask questions about the benefit to her as a homeowner. So that is the gist of her concerns in sum total. The Carters at 115 Polly's Place expressed concern that it is approximately 1,000 feet from the Learning Experience Academy, where there's a daycare and a preschool, and the majority of residents who live across the street in the Andover Estates are opposed to a dispensary operating at this particular site. Secondhand marijuana smoke is a concern to them. Would customers be allowed to smoke their purchase outside of the dispensary? Could secondhand smoke get in the air while children at the daycare or preschool are playing outside? Could smoke reach the houses across the street? And then it's located potentially directly behind the Fairfield Inn. They're also concerned about the proximity to Route 495 and the traffic increases that would potentially occur. And he notes that none of us here at this table would want this dispensary in their backyard. It should be not in our backyard. So that's their concerns. And lastly, I'll note that we got a letter from William M. and Lisa Huang, and they live at 30 Polly's Place, and very directly said, while we're unable to attend the hearing, I'd like to state that we oppose the opening of this retailer for marijuana sales at the proposed location. With it being just steps away from a child care center, I believe it's not in the best interest for the children, does not belong in such close proximity to a child care facility, sincerely. So those documents, as well as the other previously referenced letters, are all part of the public record. They're all online with our materials this evening. As I mentioned, the board received them. The board will consider those concerns, and I trust my colleagues have all reviewed and read those letters. So that having been said, let me now ask if there's anyone in the room who wishes to speak to us. I'm going to ask that you go to the microphone at the podium, you give us your name and address for the record, and you limit your comments to 3 minutes. That's been a long-standing practice of this board in the hearing process. And believe it or not, you can say a lot in 3 minutes. So I invite anyone to please rise and come on over, and we will certainly take whatever comments you have. The last comment, if I might, sir, just is direct any commentary to me, the chair, okay? Not to the applicants themselves. We want to try to maintain some order, okay?
Understood. My name is Scott Fink. I'm an attorney representing Midas Child Care. My address, 185 Devonshire Street in Boston.
Okay, welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you. I live just one town over, so regularly here. So I want to just briefly address some issues here. So we all know about the regulations about cannabis can't be within 500 feet of a K through 12 school. And then you have the advertising issue in terms of can't advertise to children. What's the intent? What's the purpose behind that? It's, of course, not to expose children to cannabis. And there's an overarching policy theme here. This idea that the daycare is not a K through 12 is factually right. And so under the letter of the law, that's right. There is no issue. But under the spirit of the law, under the terms of what is the purpose of this, what is the purpose, what is the policy issue underlying this school issue, not 500 feet within a school? It's to protect children. There are 6-week-old to 6-year-olds. Kindergartners are 6 years old. Yes, right now, there is no kindergarten, but they're still 6-year-olds. There's older kids coming to pick up in the afternoon, right? So siblings are coming to pick up. So there is exposure to children. So this letter versus the spirit of the law, I think, is a big issue. Think of liquor stores and vape shops. How many in Tewksbury, how many liquor stores are next to or within 500 feet of existing daycares? And based on what I've seen, I think the answer is 0. There's a reason. It goes to the same fundamental issue, the letter and the spirit of the law. Not having cannabis stores in your daycares, not having vape shops in your daycares, not having liquor stores in your daycares. In terms of, so I know that the board is considering two locations, this and another one. The other location is next to a liquor store, sort of in a zone of what I'll call 21 plus. And it's also, I think, consistent with the master plan of this town, which is reuse and revitalize existing structure. And my understanding is that other one is a former restaurant or pizza shop. And so it is not a new construction. It's in an area that has a liquor store. It is reutilizing or reusing existing property, structure. And so I think this location here next to the daycare is just inappropriate and does not fit with what the daycare represents. And I guess I'll just end with this comment. There is a shortage of daycares in Massachusetts. It is well documented, it has been talked about. This is not something that helps that cause. And I don't say that as some heavy-handed threat, it's not. But the learning experience needs to consider what's in its best interest as well. And anything that could push them out of the neighborhood is unhelpful to the families that it serves. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Hi, good evening. My name is Shannon Doherty. I am the Regional Manager for the Learning Experience. And I would just like to kind of piggyback on what Scott had said. Although we do not fall under the regulation of being considered a school, we do provide care from 6 weeks through school age. We actually have children get off the elementary public school bus at that school bus stop that one of the neighbors was talking about, that we get off and provide care. We also provide care for school agers during school vacations, school closings, like today, being a snow day, we would provide care for those school-age children all summer. Our children are outdoors every morning and every afternoon, so as those neighbors are speaking about those concerns, of course, we have those same exact concerns. Additional concerns would be, and unfortunately, we jumped into this a little bit later, we were never notified of the proposed cannabis center. We actually learned about it from a nice neighbor who came to the center to make us aware, and then we read about it in the newspaper. So unfortunately, we missed that neighborhood meeting back in November because we came on board a little bit later. But some of the additional concerns would be under that same regulation, although we don't meet the school regulation, I do believe that that intent was to always protect children and to provide a safe learning environment. We are in very, very close proximity, and that is a concern. We are concerned about how it will affect the business, meaning our center. We pride ourselves on providing a safe environment, and we're concerned with how the parents will feel having a cannabis dispensary next door. We do have to take into consideration being so close, even though they're going to have parking attendants and right-hand turns only, there they still have the capability to pull into our parking lot if their lot is full. Under EEC regulations, you're not allowed to have drugs or alcohol on the property. It does open up a can of worms for us if someone were to park there, make a purchase, go back. Obviously, we would have to report it to the police because it is drugs on property. Or what if they had dropped something, right? And parents are picking up, going out into the parking lot, and a child were to pick it up. There is just really that concern of safety and the negative impact that it will have on our center. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Ved Mehta. I am the owner-operator of the daycare. Shannon is my regional director, and Scott already talked about legal issues in this matter. We are not opposing cannabis store. We are only opposing the location of the cannabis store. Again, Brookline example they gave, I can give numerous other examples, like Tingsboro, how packed it is for a cannabis store, and how many daycares are upset, how many families are upset. There are tons and tons of examples. Basically, I lease this building from the same landlord that is willing to develop a site for this cannabis location. When I spoke to my landlord about this, he never notified me. And the planning and zoning, they came for the public meeting, and they amended the zone to include cannabis store. I asked him, why didn't he tell us? I asked in the planning and zoning commission. They all said, your landlord should have notified you. But unfortunately, my landlord hid it from me all these days until my staff found it. And when I spoke to my landlord, he says, oh, don't worry. Cannabis store is going to bring more traffic to your daycare center. That's what his argument is. Right now, we have regulation. If you as a parent drop off your kid and come to pick up, if you are high on alcohol or abuse, then we don't even give your own child back to you. We are supposed to call 911. Okay, so that kind of regulation, that kind of safety measures what we take. We currently employ 40 staff. We give care for 110 kids right now, and the capacity is for 160 kids. So we are talking about nearly 150 to 160 families in this community. And when the parents come for pickup and drop off, their siblings are there in the car, they're watching, they're walking the parking lot. All these regulations, that the intent of the law, you have already heard from my attorney, why those regulations are there, that they cannot advertise cannabis store, they cannot be, it has to be hidden, it has to be away from 500 feet. All these laws are made for a reason. And I request the select board to look at the intent of those laws before you make an approval. I have no objection with the store, retail store, it's legal. Federally, it is still illegal. And we even approached DEC, which is the child care department, and they said they will start looking into this, and they said it's a long process. It's not going to be an overnight thing that we can beat this timely. So basically, when you have more options, why are you chasing this location right next to me? And if you still insist and go ahead and give this location the preference and approve it, because the applicant seems to be a very nice person, and he's a very reputable person, he's well connected in the country, in the town. If you still go ahead and give because of his good behavior, I have no choice other than to shut down my business. Because ours is a private daycare. People have choices when it comes to sending their kids. They don't have to send to my center, they can send to another center that opens up 1,000 feet away or a mile away, another part of the town. There is a kindercare, there is competition all around. And so I will lose business, if not overnight, gradually I will lose business because parents will phase out, their children will graduate. I'm not going to enroll new children. I'm going to close my business for sure, 100% guaranteed. Because I know my business, I know what brings my business, I know people parents, I know how sensitive it is, the matter for real parents. People who don't care, they don't care. But people care about their children, they do really care about them. And finally, I would like to say, excellent presentation from the applicant about the measures that they're going to take, how well they're going to do, the 30 employees that they're going to have. All those things are well said. But the revenue that they're talking about, if they do over, we are in trouble because of the traffic and all those reasons. If they do under, they are in trouble, and they're not going to do all the things that they have said, because as a businessman, I know it is practically impossible to keep up 30 employees and giving away all these things, stock options and all these things, and still be profitable. So they will start cutting the corners over a period of time, if not on the day one, and eventually it is going to drag down. You are looking at approving it on the day one, which might sound very good on the paper, but operationally, as things roll, they don't make money. If it is not a successful join, then it is going to go down the hill and it's going to affect my business in any way. 2 years from now, I'm not going to be here if you approve this. My business will shut down. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Michelle Stella, 80 Polly's Place. 3 minutes. I don't even know where to begin. I have so many concerns and so many thoughts in my head right now. My normal resting rate, which my watch tells me, is up a good 20 beats. So I'm going to start with a question, just for clarification, and this is for Caitlin, and this was simply because I couldn't hear, okay? Caitlin, am I understanding correctly that you are in fact gold standard? Is that correct?
So again, I'm
Oh, I
going to repeat
forgot.
that,
Okay.
right?
Ooh.
So why don't
All
you
right.
ask, if you have other questions, get them on the table and then
Okay.
we'll work through it. But I want to be mindful of the
I'm
clock.
not, okay, I'm not clear if she is actually the owner.
Okay.
I'm also not clear, I wasn't sure if I heard correctly, if she's the investor, the actual investor in this business, because I know when we had a community meeting, we were told the investor was private. That wasn't something that needed to be disclosed, and I think that's what I heard tonight, so I'm curious about that. But I
We'll get a
understand that.
clarification.
I forgot that part about not being able to direct. So let me move on. I'm going to say a couple of things. We're talking a lot about the daycare because it's super important. What I'm going to talk about is Polly's Place, which is also very important. Children live there also. I think I'm going to stick a little bit. I won't read my 4-page letter that I sent you all, but I do have a little bit organized here. And I want to start with revisiting what somebody already said about the applicant that's already on the table, approved by the planning board. And what I want to say about that, and the reason why I raised this topic, is simply to make the point that no residents or business owners have shown up. I came to the last meeting. They haven't shown up to speak out in opposition of this site. They have not shown up to share concerns regarding safety, traffic, crime, home value, aesthetics, risks, or any general concerns regarding the 2504 Main Street location. And so I want to start with that because that's on the table, and I think that's pretty important and significant. I'm going to move to talking about some contradictions that I keep hearing. I was at last night's meeting. The numbers that were said tonight completely contradict the numbers that came out last night. We had, I wrote it down, somewhere between 893 to 1,092 visits. Now again, did I mishear? I don't know. I wish other folks, or maybe some other folks here, took notes as well, but obviously it's recorded so I can go back and check. Traffic is a major, major concern. It is very difficult to pull out of Polly's Place. Last night I had mentioned my concern about Polly's Place. We're a great place to make a U-turn no matter what, without that business being there. But imagine all the people that are coming to discover this new shop just, oh, whoops, just went by it, heading towards Lowell. We're the first place you're gonna ditch into to make a U-turn. So we already have problems with people making their U-turns in a private way with children. So that is a real concern. Where do I want to go from here? I guess I'll move on from traffic, because that was obviously last night's topic, to safety and crime. Late this afternoon, you probably haven't seen it, I did forward along a document. I did research, and I was able to pull up, and I sent you, so if you haven't seen it, I hope you do get a chance to look at it, links to different dispensaries within Massachusetts. I think I added a very recent big thing that happened in Denver, Colorado as well, but the rest was all about 10 different locations that dealt with robberies within the past 2 years of cannabis dispensaries. It's a real thing. We're not here making things up when we say we're concerned about safety and crime.
All right, I'm going to ask you to make your last point. because the clock is running.
Then I will say, please look at that document, and then I will just say, as quickly as I can, we already deal with our share of problems with safety and crime around us, with the gas stations and surrounding hotels bringing transients to our residential neighborhood. As recently as 2 weeks ago, on January 22nd, residents at Polly's Place were awakened somewhere around 1:30 to 3 police cars parked at Polly's Place. The officers were searching around our homes with flashlights. They were looking for someone who had escaped on foot. This is far from the first time this has happened, and I've only lived there about 7.5 years. We've got the Fairfield Inn, steps away from Polly's Place. I'm sorry, at 1695 Andover Street. It steps away from us and the proposed dispensary. It's a hotbed for crime, mostly drug-related. On January 23rd, multiple police units were there at that inn. On January 1st at 8 p.m., a police officer was walking with his canine along 133 between Aroma Joe's and headed into the driveway of the Fairfield Inn. On Tuesday, January 30th at 7:30 p.m., Tewksbury Police Narcotics Unit purchased fentanyl from an individual at a parking lot at a business on Andover Street. It goes on and on. I have to skip this whole paragraph. My final comment will be home value, okay? There is a stigma attached. There is, right or wrong, it's true. I would not have purchased my home if that business had been there across the street. There is no denying this affects us, our residents, our home values, our comfort level, and we were here first. There's not even a building there yet. There's a building somewhere else where the residents aren't upset and aren't pushing back. We're basically showing up at every meeting begging, please hear us. We love where we live. We know we live near a commercial zone, but there's a lot of residents there too. Aroma Joe's, we didn't show up and push back on all those places because we know we live across from a commercial zone. There's going to be businesses there. We didn't push. We went to the meetings. We didn't push when that high-end Italian restaurant was going in because, well, that added some value, just like the bank. This does not add value. This gives us nothing. And it's going to bring a lot of traffic. Thank you for letting me.
All right, I appreciate your comments. Okay, please, we need to be respectful on all sides here. Let me just ask the proponent to clarify about the ownership of Gold Standard and the relationship that you have, if you can do that, please.
Sure. So I organized Gold Standard Management, registered it with the state. Gold Standard Consulting Services. So just a bit of history on it. Caitlin was originally brought in to a client of mine to help turn around their retail establishments. get them better performing, make them more compliant. She did a phenomenal job of doing that. And we had other partners of that business reach out and say, can you help our business as well? So we decided to spin that off and make it a standalone business, Gold Standard Consulting, so that Caitlin had the freedom under the cannabis regulations, which very tightly control ownership and control, to be able to go into those other sites to work with people like Dean and help them as well. So there are some legacy partners who are investors from that original cannabis company who are partners in Gold Standard Management. They're silent partners. They don't have any ownership or control over Dean's facility. They don't have any ownership or control over it. Caitlin is the lead at Gold Standard Consulting. She's the face of the business. She's the brains of the operation. It's her baby. And then in terms of the investment, the way it's going to work is it's a note from Gold Standard Management, a line of credit. That line of credit where it comes into private investors is then, as Caitlin determines with Dean what the budget is, she will go out and do the raise, reach out to people who have already expressed interest in investing in Gold Standard, and then be able to use those funds to invest in Dean. So all investment comes from Gold Standard. Caitlin is the sole conduit of that line of credit. And then that is what gets drawn from on that note, like any other piece of commercial paper. People can then invest in that, get paid back the return on the interest rate on that note. And then just one other item that I would like to take the opportunity to address. Yes, last night at the planning board, the 2 traffic engineers were predicting that 800 to 1,000 cars. Where that number comes from, they do it solely based off the square footage of the dispensary and no other variable, using data from 2010 in Oregon and Colorado. Where we get the 350 cars is the dispensaries that we work with and actual 2023 performance in Massachusetts. So that's a valid number. It's out there. It's a strictly mathematical formula only based off the square footage. We disagree with that based off real world performance. There's no dispensary that is not in Metro Boston doing over 1,000 customers a day or around 1,000 customers a day. The average dispensary in Massachusetts sees between 200 and 300, and that's where we say that's a much more realistic figure than how many customers will the broom closet and the break room generate off the square footage.
All right. And I'll just note, we're not going to adjudicate the traffic here, right? The planning board has a process, and they've asked for peer reviews, and they've done their homework. They'll speak to that. I know you're not through that process, and as I said in our opening comments, or my opening comments, this board intends to take action on March 12th. So you obviously have a clock ticking to work with the planning board and address those concerns, whatever they may be. And I trust that the residents that you're hearing from tonight have expressed those same concerns to the planning board, which is the right forum for that. We are obviously concerned about that. We consider that. I'm saying this for your benefit. But we're not going to adjudicate what the right traffic level is. That's not our role here. Okay, we certainly will consider your concerns about that, but I want to make that clear. So I appreciate the clarity. I hope it was helpful, and we'll move on. Ma'am? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Ilia Robles. I live in the 45 Paulus Place. Also, I have a little one, a daughter, that she's going to the learning experience daycare. I just want to share, I moved here 5 months ago. I don't know, when you buy a house, when you go to visit, you have that feeling that you say, oh, this is my house, I want this one, I'm gonna move here. I just feel in love with the town. It's a beautiful town. I feel in love with the location. It's a great location. I just want to share that that location can be more, can have something else, more benefit for the community. I don't see how the cannabis, that's gonna be benefit for us, the people that live around there. I just want to share that I don't see any benefits of that. And I don't feel, I don't know, I don't agree with nothing of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pablo Lopez. I'm representing myself and my wife Sylvia Lopez here tonight. I live at 120 Paulus Place in the Andover Estates. I work the overnight shift, so I'm losing sleep to be here. This matters to me. My wife and I have both been losing a lot of sleep over this. A little food for thought to begin with. In Tewksbury, there's one public library and one public park, about 3 miles away from us. We don't need 3 weed shops, especially one 50 feet away from our property. I don't have a problem with legal, safe, and private marijuana use. I understand that marijuana users need safe and legitimate suppliers of marijuana. But like everything else, context matters. In this case, the context is a new vice industry business 50 feet from a residential neighborhood, Andover Estates, filled with families with young, vulnerable children and worried parents. The neighborhood is already on a busy road with a lot of traffic. As a result, many cars with no connections to our neighborhood already use our private driveway as a U-turn. Also, many times, strange cars use our private parking to loiter. When passing drivers use our private driveway, they often go through at an uncomfortable speed. This is where my 11 and 7-year-old play. I'm sure that the proposed marijuana shop will increase traffic going through our private driveway. When there are people loitering in our driveway, it makes me uncomfortable. I'm sure that the proposed marijuana shop will increase the amount of people who will loiter there and use the products of this proposed shop. As it is now, I already find discarded empty bottles of little liquor nips in the parking lot along the sidewalk of our property. In the past, I've also found syringes thrown along the sidewalk of our property. People under the influence are not known for their good judgment. I'm sure that living 50 feet across from a marijuana shop will increase the number of drivers that will use the parking lot to use your marijuana products. As a parent, I'm scared that this shop will increase the amount of strangers, possibly users under the influence, driving 2-ton vehicles near my kids. I'm afraid that my kids will find marijuana candies or other edibles in colorful wrappings dropped on our property or throughout the neighborhood sidewalks. I'm concerned my kids will have to walk past a marijuana shop to go to the local Wendy's to get a burger. The applicants say that they will have security officers and parking attendants. Will they be providing us with private security and parking attendants? That's all we have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
I'm Alex Pratt from 125 Polly's Place, and I did submit a letter, and in the interest of brevity, I won't go through the whole thing. I guess my key points, other than the ones already stated about the daycare and the turnarounds and the parking, are 133 is going to deteriorate. There are trucks and workers who go by there every day, and you hear the trucks bouncing up and down on the road. A couple of months ago, there was a water main that broke pretty much right in front of where these people are trying to put their pot shop. So I think the road infrastructure is one issue, not the most significant, but it is an issue. And the other thing I would say about the road is they're talking about the exiting out of the front and turning right or out of the back into the bank parking lot. The people exiting out of the back of the site are not going to do any different things when they go out to 133. They're still going to confuse it. They're still going to try to turn left. They're still going to back up traffic. But another point that they're not taking into account is the people from 93 and 495 who come towards Lowell and then want to take a left-hand turn to go into the pot shop to get their marijuana. So that's where the traffic issue really is. I actually tried to send you all videos of traffic on 133 in the afternoon. That's a typical afternoon. There is no way that you can move easily. I can walk across that street 3 times because nobody's gone anywhere, unless I'm going to get hit by somebody whizzing by heading towards Andover. So I think we need to look at that, or somebody needs to look at that part of it as well. I think the other issues that I have are basically the crime. I saw the police in the middle of the night on the 2 or 3 occasions that Michelle mentioned. I was awakened by police cruisers in my parking lot. I was the one who went over and saw the police officer with the dog. Then I went back to my house, and he was the one who walked into Fairfield Inn. I went back to my house and I called the police to make sure he was in fact a police officer, because he was wearing a large weapon, and I just wanted to be sure he was legitimate. But that just shows that the police are there, and that's great. We're very happy to have them. They do a good job. We had a neighbor who was one for several years, and we liked having him there. But what I have here and what I said to you is an incident log of police incidents during the month of December that were on Andover Street. There were approximately 90 incidents just on Andover Street. I didn't pull down arrests because the arrest log just shows where the people are being arrested and where they live. But I am very concerned with 90 incidents before a pot shop comes in, what's going to happen. And I believe we're going to end up having to call the police as residents of Polly's Place for people turning around for suspicious activities, and it's going to be a very, very torturous situation for everybody involved who is a resident and a neighbor. Thank you very much for your consideration. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi, June Wojcik, 78 Deering Drive. So this is right adjacent to a few different residential areas, and I have not heard from one person in any of those areas who wants this cannabis store here. I understand it'll benefit the town financially, as would any business that was located there, and it will benefit its business owners. It will in no way benefit the neighborhoods that are there. And in fact, all the concerns that people have been raising, it'll do the opposite. It was unnecessarily pointed out to us last night at length at the planning board meeting that we live near a commercial area and that this business is legal. We're very much aware of those 2 things, but those 2 things do not negate our serious concerns. I've spent very little time researching the effects of cannabis stores on the areas that they move into. But in the little time that I did spend, I easily found a number of studies that showed significant increases in traffic issues, associated safety issues, significant increases in crime and police involvement, sales to underage customers in spite of all the regulations that exist, decrease in property values by 3 to 5% in the surrounding 4/10 of a mile, increase operation of cars by users under the influence in the immediate areas, et cetera. There are a number of studies that document this, not only in Massachusetts, but across the United States. We've been assured that this location won't be like all of these numerous locations that have been studied, or like all, and I repeat all, of the cannabis stores that people from our neighborhoods have driven to, sat and observed, and watched what's going on, driven by. And there's no offense meant here at all, but I have no confidence that this one store is going to be unique and different from all these studied in this state and across the nation that document all of these negative effects. So in looking at all these factors, and probably more that others have, this is a situation, I think, where common sense, wisdom, neighborliness, and concern for the immediate community should prevail. It's not an appropriate location. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
My name is Judith Jardis, 55 Deering Drive. I agree with just about everything that is being said. I have lived on Deering Drive for more than 50 years. I'm going to be very brief. When I first moved there, it was big farmhouses, and across the street, little ranches and capes. So it's changed over the years. And one thing that has really changed is the traffic. The traffic is terrible. The solutions that I heard last night that were presented to the planning board will not solve these problems. Going out the back of the parking lot and going over near where the bank is, I mean, they had a diagram there. I'm familiar with the area. And even if you go out the back parking lot, you would go down past the ATM machines and back onto 133. So it is not solving that at all. I first heard about these meetings on Thanksgiving Eve. I happened to see it on my computer. So because I am so concerned with this area, I decided to go to that first meeting at the Hilton. So I've been to 2 of the meetings run by the people presenting, and I've been to 2 planning board meetings. I've been to 1 select board. This is my select board. I'm learning more about boards than I ever thought I would. So, and also I watched a Zoom meeting, and at the Zoom meeting, it was the other applicant. And I'm familiar with that area. I don't live in that area, though. But I know that that pizza shop has been vacant for years. And it does have a parking lot there. And I have no connection to it. It's in a part of 38 where the traffic isn't as heavy. So, you know, I kind of wonder why that's being overlooked. Another thing, as far as traffic, even if you have attendance within the parking lot, that's not going to help the parking lot out on the street. Previously, Highwood Drive has had to have a police detail at the end of that, and they had it for many years. Another thing that happens, if there's any problem on 495, you know, an accident or whatever, everybody comes down that ramp to 133. So these are my concerns, and it's nice meeting you all.
Thank you for being here.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Karen Carter. I live at 97 Deering Drive. My neighbors over here, I've lived there since 1976, so I've been here a long time. I've also seen the changes that have occurred on 133. I know Dean personally, so this is not an attack on, I like him personally, so it's not an attack on his business plan. I'm not here to criticize that. 2 main concerns I have. Traffic is number 1 for me. Like I said, living there my entire life and seeing the changes, the traffic is awful there. And I know when the casino was proposed to go where Avid Technology Park was years ago, I voted that down as well, and traffic being the main concern. Deering Drive's kind of across the street from Aroma Joe's, so right there you have the light at North Street that also compounds the traffic. To her point that she just made, if there is a traffic something happening on 495, people do dump off that. I have had instances where it's taken me 25 minutes to get from where the Wendy's is to just get on my street. So I don't see how this helps. I just see it being a complete nightmare there. And then the only other point I'm making, this is just more of an opinion than is anything else. I heard all the comments that made by these people that own the Learning Academy, and I know there's lots of laws, and they talk about the rules, whether it's a kindergarten, it's a school, whatever. I'm not here to debate that. I just know that having a cannabis shop next to a daycare, preschool, whatever we're calling it, it's just not a good look for the town, and that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going to thank you all for your comments. I want to thank you for the manner in which you delivered them. Some of you expressed that, there's differing views, and it could be, there are differing ways to look at things. I ask you just to imagine sitting on this side of the table, okay? Walk a mile in someone's shoes, because this board is charged and has the responsibility with determining what the right course for our community is. I have the utmost faith in my colleagues, and I've sat here at this table for a long, long time. And I know that every vote I've ever taken, I've taken for what I believe to be the right thing for our community. And I can guarantee you that in all those votes I took over 20 years, there were people in the room who agreed, and there were people in the room who disagreed with that action. And sadly, that same occurrence is going to happen here in a few weeks, because whatever I personally decide, or my colleagues decide, or our board decides as a whole, there's going to be people who agree, and there's going to be people who disagree. We're going to do the best that we can. That's what we swear to do. And I know from my interactions with my colleagues, that is how they carry out our collective responsibilities. I ask that you trust in that. The planning board has its set of responsibilities, and we work in tandem, if you will, on parallel courses. We have different statutory obligations than the planning board. The planning board, in my opinion, also does their best to execute the duties that they have. There's all kinds of room to disagree, right? Unfortunately, that's why we're here tonight. We have to make a decision at some point soon. And it's on our shoulders to weigh all of the input that you gave us tonight, the presentation that was provided to us by the applicant, all the written materials that have been submitted, and we have to compare that to what we've heard previously. And we'll do the best that we can. And I'm not going to sit here and guarantee any result, and I'm not going to guarantee that any person on either side is going to be happy with an outcome, because I don't know what it will be yet. I haven't made up my mind. I have to think about it, and I have to dwell on it. I have to study the information and the details that were provided to us this evening. So I ask you to continue to be patient and follow the process. And we're not going to have another meeting until the 12th. And at that time, this board will presumably make a determination on what, if either of those two proposals we want to support, or perhaps, as I said earlier, maybe we will take action to take no action. There's nothing that says we have to give out 3 licenses. We can give out up to 3 licenses. So I don't know what this board will do. My colleagues have to consider what their views are, as do I, and we'll come together and we'll discuss that and come up with an answer. So I want to thank you all for expressing your views. I know it's an investment of time. I know that it's an important topic. I can tell from your comments and your emotion. This is not the first time that a topic of some concern has been raised by other parts of our community, other topics. Unfortunately, that is part of living in a community, and we have a lot of different issues as our community has grown significantly over the years. It's been referenced tonight, the changes in that corridor. That's not the only part of Tewksbury that's changed a lot, as I'm sure all of you can appreciate. And we have to work our way through that collectively. So we'll do our best, and you'll certainly be aware on the 12th when we get together again. All right, so I want to thank the 3 of you for your presentation and the input. And with that, I'm going to ask my colleagues to vote to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so for the record, we have a motion made by Mr. Holland and a second by Ms. Wellman to close the public hearing. All those, I can't do it that way. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote? Mr. Kratman's not, yep, there he is. I see. Aye, thank you. Mr. Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
All right, so I'm going to vote in the affirmative as well. So this public hearing is closed. We'll take no further information in, and I just ask that we be kept apprised of the planning board's determination before we get back here on the 12th. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a 3-minute recess, and then we're going to ask the town manager to speak to the enterprise fund budgets, the capital improvement plan, and we're going to call it a night. We're gonna come back. All right, we're back. So we have one other agenda item, and that is the town manager's presentation of fiscal year 2025 enterprise fund budgets and capital improvement plan. So we saved the low-hanging fruit for the last item today, I guess. So we'll do our best to stay alert and awake. Yeah, well, there are no, oh, okay, we'll see what happens. All right, Mr. Montori?
Okay, the presentation, I think is it on your monitors? I just want to make sure.
It is.
And
Pass that to Bruce. Because I'm going to be standing, I'm just going to move out of frame, so I'm not blocking.
That's fine.
Okay, so this is the FY25 presentation for enterprise funds, enterprise fund budgets, water and sewer rates, and the capital improvement plan. When we talk about enterprise funds, we talk about the telemedia enterprise fund or our cable television enterprise fund, water enterprise budget, and water capital, which is part of the water enterprise fund. Recommended rates we'll talk about tonight for water rates. We'll talk about the sewer enterprise budget, sewer enterprise capital, and recommended sewer rates, and the stormwater enterprise budget, stormwater capital, and stormwater fee. When we talk about enterprise funds are funds authorized by Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, F and a half. It's a separate accounting and financial reporting mechanism for municipal services, for which a fee is charged in exchange for the goods and services. We've had enterprise funds in this town since 2002. The reason why we adopt enterprise funds is to identify the total service cost of the service that we're providing. Those who use the service pay for the service. It is useful for management information. All of the investment income and surplus that is generated from the revenue and the fees of the service stay with the fund. So this allows this prevents any deficits in our general fund, and it maintains Department of Revenue oversight, which is important, and it maintains town meeting oversight and budgeting when you have enterprise funds. The sewer enterprise fund in town was adopted in October of 2002. The water enterprise fund was adopted in May of 2005. The telemedia enterprise fund was adopted in May of 2016, and the stormwater enterprise was adopted in October of 2019. This is just a set of definitions that the board and I've talked to residents, mentioned in my presentation to residents and to the board before. Just to save some time, I'm not going to go through them. This next page does the same. The only one I want to two that I want to talk about that we mentioned tonight specifically are the indirect costs and allocations definition. When we talk about those tonight, those are costs for services not reflected in the operating budgets for the enterprise funds, but they're allocations that get identified. Example of an indirect cost are providing that you'll see are for things that, my time in dealing with the enterprise funds, the Director of Public Works, health insurance, other areas that are allocations that you'll see when we talk about the enterprise funds tonight. Retained earnings, which will also be talked about tonight, that's essentially the surplus at the end of the year for each of the enterprise funds that are generated if our revenue exceeds our projections for revenue, and any money that's turned back at the end of the fiscal year within those budgets. Currently, the water enterprise retained earnings are $1,668,466. Sewer retained earnings has a balance of $5,884,267. Cable retained earnings have a balance of $2,374,958, and stormwater retained earnings has a balance of $848,035. The first enterprise fund we're going to discuss is telemedia. The telemedia budget, which again is our cable enterprise budget, totals $423,802. The budget itself is $388,091. That entails salaries for the employees who are part of the telemedia department. It's 2 full-time employees and part-time employees. Their expenses to maintain the telemedia department is $96,850. Capital outlay, $48,000 for any one-time expenditures that they have. The operating funds for this year actually decreased. We budgeted for special counsel at a certain amount in FY24 that is not needed in FY25, although we'll still retain a special counsel to assist with the negotiation of the extension of our cable contracts. We didn't need all of the funds we appropriated in FY24. Salaries increased $5,702, mainly for step increases and any contractual, any benefits that the 2 full-time employees would get in areas such as longevity. And then capital outlay increased $18,000 for the purchase of a portable AV cart for the high school. The cost of that is estimated to be $48,000. The capital expenses for the department, which is what we appropriated in a separate line item, a separate article last year at town meeting, decreased $200,000. We are undertaking upgrades to the high school studio this year. Actually, we're going to be opening bids in a few weeks. That $200,000 is not needed in FY25 since there's no major capital being undertaken. On the Telemedia Enterprise Fund capital improvements, there are no projects requested within the capital budget at this time. As I mentioned, retained earnings is a little bit over $2.3 million. The revenue for Telemedia that funds the enterprise fund comes from 2 areas, Comcast franchise fee and capital, and Verizon franchise fee. The Comcast capital collected and fee for FY23 was $311,996, and the Verizon franchise fee was $252,334. We had investment income from the Telemedia Enterprise Fund of $62,913, and the total amount we collected in FY23 was $627,243, and that helped fund the projects and the Telemedia Enterprise Fund. Any questions on Telemedia?
I have a quick question.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, through Mr. Chairman. Just really quickly, on the property and casualty insurance, you're not apportioning anything to the enterprise fund for the coverage of equipment?
Everything that it's covered in our property, and how much that is, it's hard to break out. So
You don't have anything on like thermal imaging cameras or some of the more high-end items like that would be covered?
Nothing that would be in their department. We do have thermal imaging cameras.
Fire department. Because that's on the special property list, but also the vehicle. Do you have a vehicle?
The vehicle, there's a small amount on that.
Yeah, it's
They mostly just pay for their, they have a special insurance policy that they pay for. So to break out the other things, we just haven't apportioned out.
Okay, all right. Because, yeah, there's not a whole lot there you could gain back. And then the real question is, it would be interesting to see how the numbers have looked longitudinally to see if cable cost cutting is actually translating into reduced income through the franchise fee. So I think they, pay you quarterly?
They pay quarterly.
Yeah, so
We can give you an
curious,
analysis.
like, what that's looking like and what that's trending for, because are you coming up on your Comcast renewal, or does that already happen?
So
It's like
coming up
5
for-
years now?
We're coming up for both are up for extension.
Yeah, okay.
So, but we can give you, I can give the board just a history of each. Should give you
Yeah,
an idea where they're trending.
I'm just curious, like, what those deposits look like, because, folks are doing cutting cable, and we want to have a telemedia department for a long time. You guys do a great job. So
Right.
I'm curious what that's trending. Thank you.
And just to that point quickly, it's one of the things we think of because we know that people are changing from basic cable operations to other options. And, we do have a healthy retained earnings, which could get us through any difficult times. But also, this budget is a pretty lean budget.
Yeah.
And, we don't have a lot of staff. The expenses are just basically what they need. So even if the franchise fees do drop significantly, I think we'll have enough to pay for what we have for a department, and then the retained earnings can take us through any capital needs for a while until things change.
Mr. Montori, just a quick question on that, and I'll use myself as an example, because I recently cut the cord, or cut the cable, as they say. So relative to the franchise fees, I still have one of these providers as my broadband provider. Does the contract pertain only to television, or does it pertain to broadband, which
It's only
brings?
for cable TV.
Only cable television, okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Not internet.
So I'm one of those people who's out of the game. Okay. Mr. Mackey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We should probably take a look at, I know that a lot of these providers offer access. If you do cut the cord, you can still get access to like certain channels through your internet. So you can basically log into your Xfinity or Comcast, your provider, and you can see certain stream certain channels. So we may want to look into that and make sure there's not a contract angle that we are potentially losing dollars on, where people are cutting the cord for cable, but they're still getting those services through internet.
Do that. And if for cable?
Mr. Chairman, I got a quick question as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Graben.
One of the things that I brought up over the last couple of years is, televising additional meetings. In this time of year, we're doing selectmen meetings, planning board meetings, and a lot of other things, and sports are going. And, I think it's important, the finance committee meetings have been going on, and we have department heads going on, discussing each one of their priorities and what's going on. And I brought it to the attention of the town manager. I thought it was important that the residents get to see those questions that are being asked at the finance committee meeting. And we haven't been able to televise it because we've just had either a shortage of people to tape additional meetings or do those type of things. Has there been any thought, much like in the way in elections, when we add on additional staff or doing something to bring on some part-time staff when we do get busier for this time of year, especially, fall and spring meeting? We get a lot of people that come to town meeting and ask the same questions that are discussed at every single finance committee meeting. And I think that would save a lot of time if the residents got to hear those questions answered, or watch the video. So I think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, we've talked, the finance committee's been discussing that. We've been discussing it internally to see what we can do. This time of year isn't as busy as, say, the fall and the spring. So maybe we could work something out with just the budget. Meetings are televised, but not all other finance committee meetings where they're just dealing with transfers. So I know the chairman of the finance committee's been talking about it, thinking about it, and we've been talking about it internally. See if we can work something out.
Very good. Okay.
All right, water enterprise budget. So there are two budgets within the water enterprise fund. One is water distribution and the other is water filtration plant. Water distribution is everything outside the plants, all of our infrastructure outside the plants, our pipes, our pump stations. And the distribution budget for FY '25 decreased $256,631. Salaries decreased $51,515, mainly because we had an employee in FY '24 that retired and received terminal leave. We won't have that cost in FY '25. The overall operating budget decreased $5,116 for a variety of reasons within the budget. But mainly contract, leases and contracts was the big area that decreased. Within that line item, there was a decrease of $39,952 because DPW work, because work is being undertaken by DPW staff that previously was contracted out. So we saw a big savings there. There was an increase in that account, the line item of $10,000 for annual leak detection, which we're doing the entire town instead of just half the town. So the net decrease was a little over $30,000. The slide shows other areas that had increases and decreases, but the overall operating part of the budget decreased, as I said, $5,116. Capital outlay within the distribution budget decreased $200,000. In FY '24, we put $200,000 into capital outlay to install meter registers in residential homes. We're not going to need that funding next year because the plan is to undertake that project as part of a major capital project within the capital budget that I'll speak to later. Water filtration had an increase of $114,884. This is the water treatment plant budget. Salaries, the salary increase of $41,322.72 was only for step increases and longevity increases. And I should have mentioned earlier, none of the salary budgets in any of the enterprise funds have any cost of living increases in them. We're still negotiating contracts and haven't determined what those will be yet. So these are just straight step increases and longevity changes or other contractual changes. The expense budget increased $73,561. Again, a list of line items where they increased. The plant, it runs 24/7, so there is repairs and maintenance that we've seen increases to, laboratory services, our chemicals, our supplies and equipment for the plant all had budgetary impacts in FY '25. And mainly all of the increases that we show in this slide were basically because of the cost of equipment, cost of various items and supplies that we use have increased. And that's just what we're seeing throughout all of our budgets, but the water treatment plants saw it especially. When you look at the entire enterprise fund together, these are all the amounts that we need to fund for both the distribution and filtration budget as well as other items. This budget also shows the amount of debt that we need to raise in the water enterprise fund budget, funding for other post-employment benefits, occupational health, a reserve, all items that we need to raise and appropriate funds for. And then there's a section of indirect costs. These are the allocations I mentioned earlier. These are the costs that are charged to the enterprise fund for other departments' time spent providing service and oversight to the enterprise fund. So the total amount that we need to raise for water enterprise is $8,744,543, an increase of $562,063 over this current fiscal year. The paragraph below explains where the increases in the allocations came from, and mainly the allocation increases were driven by an 8% increase in health insurance, increase in property and liability insurance, and an increase in our retirement assessment. Within the enterprise fund budget, we want to talk about capital improvements, and as I mentioned earlier, one of the bigger parts of the budget, I just want to go back to that, is debt service. Our debt service is a little over $3.1 million, an increase of $579,200, and that will fund the biggest portion of our capital budget. We are going to continue in FY25 what we started in FY24, which is to be as aggressive as we can within our fund to replace water mains in town. The plan is to replace 3 miles of water main in FY25 as we're doing in FY24. That cost is approximately $5.4 million a year. As you can see, over the 5 years, it's $27 million that we're going to be spending to replace water mains, which is our biggest driver in our enterprise fund budget. The other area that we'll be borrowing money for in FY25 is $1.5 million for a water meter replacement program. As I mentioned, we thought we could handle that within the budget, but it's too big of a project, and we're going to need to borrow $1.5 million for 3 years for a total cost of $4.5 million over a 3-year period to replace the meter registers within residential homes and businesses that are failing. They're past their 10-year life. We're not replacing the whole meter. We're just replacing the register that reads the meter and provides the reading back to us for billing and usage purposes. Over the next 5 years, we're going to spend $1.5 million at the water treatment plant for improvements. In FY25, we're seeking $400,000 for water plant improvements for pump replacements at the plant. Over the next 5 years, $750,000 for hydrant replacement. That's been the $150,000 we spend every year to replace hydrants in the community. And then over the next 5 years, vehicle replacement totaling $416,000. In FY25, we'll be using retained earnings to transfer $75,000 to replace a vehicle that is shared with the sewer enterprise fund. As I mentioned, the current retained earnings is $1,668,466. We do have a stabilization fund that has $1,983,456 in it that is available for any future capital. And as I mentioned earlier, the plan is to spend $27 million over the next 5 years in replacing water mains 3 miles a year. And then from the next 5 years after that, we're going to want to spend another $27 million to keep that going, for a total of $54 million between now and the end of 2034. And at that point, we will have addressed about a little over 40% of the water mains that need to be replaced. Still a long way to go, but an aggressive approach that we've tried to undertake within the water enterprise budget. This next slide just gives you an idea of the type of water main we have, or material we have for water mains within the distribution system. We're trying to address the asbestos cement pipe, the cast iron pipe as our priorities. Ductile iron pipe is what we want to replace it with, but also we've used plastic pipe in recent years, which we'll continue to look at using depending on the cost difference between that and the ductile iron and the locations we're going to install it. But this just gives you an idea of what we have in the system. This slide is always a good slide to show you that what our debt in the water enterprise fund is compared to the water enterprise budget. In FY24, it's 29%, but as you can see, as we become more aggressive in our replacement of water mains, that debt as a percentage of budget will increase. In regard to water revenue, we're projecting to collect $8,887,965 through water rates and other revenue within the water enterprise fund. Water user fees will generate a little over $8.4 million in revenue to the Water Enterprise Fund. We're projecting a surplus of $143,422, which seems like a lot, but this year is a good example where everything we base our water rate, the way we base our water rates is on projected usage within the community. And this year it's been a very wet year, not as much usage as we projected. So any surplus that we have between our revenue and expenditures help us blunt any shortage in usage. So that 143 can get eaten up very quick, as we're seeing this year, because our revenue is coming in much less than we projected. But, there have been other years where it's been a very dry year, and we see high usage. So the last 3 years have been very unique. This year's been very rainy. The 2 years prior to that have been very dry. We based our water revenue on FY21 usage, because that was the last normal year we had in the community, if you can believe it. This is just a good chart showing you the budget to revenue since 2012. And then moving on to water rates, which will help fund the enterprise fund budget. Water rates will increase in FY25. They increased in FY24, but I always like to point out that prior to FY24, they had not increased for 3 years and only once in the 5 years prior to FY24. During those years, because of the debt exclusions we had, an increase in taxes, we wanted to keep rates as stable as we could. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, water usage for revenue projections is based on actual usage from August of 21, December of 21, and April of 22. Again, those were the last, what I would call normal years. Usage is 649,350,523 gallons. There's no change because it's the same amount we projected in FY24. We have a 94% collection rate for our water billing, and rate projections include all capital improvements within the 5-year plan and annual funds for water distribution upgrades. This is the current and proposed rate tiers for FY25. This section will give you an idea of what the increase will be for various levels of usage. The 2 highlighted areas are important to note. Approximately 71% of the town is within that 55,000 gallon range. So they will see a $60.95 annual increase in their water bill. 90,000 gallons is what Mass DEP uses as the average for a single-family home in the Commonwealth. We have 91% of our users are within the 90,000 gallons. They're not all at the 90, they're 90,000 and less. They're going to see a $117 increase. It's been difficult to find rate comparisons. There used to be surveys that were done by the MWRA and some consulting firms that would provide good information. So we're still working off of 2017 and 2022 information, but it still gives you an idea of the comparison of where our average water bill is, using 90,000 gallons. Obviously, it's on the high side compared to these other rates, but when I look at other communities and you try to compare to other communities, it really is difficult, because what you don't know is how much of the general fund is subsidizing their water rates. So for example, many communities pay a portion or all of the debt for water projects in their community. So they're not a fully loaded water enterprise fund like we are. We pay for everything in our water enterprise fund. So without knowing that, it's hard to tell if their rate is comparable to ours. So this just gives you an idea, but it's difficult when you look at some of these other communities that do subsidize their water operations. Just some final comments on the water enterprise funds before we go to any questions. The impact on water distribution improvements is the largest impact in the water enterprise fund. The overall budget's really, when you look at the, the increase was not that much in FY '25. In fact, I believe the overall water budgets went down. Water usage is important to monitor. As I mentioned, the last 3 years have not been normal. This year, we are watching it very closely. We hope to make the projection because we gave ourselves some room, but it's going to be very, very close. We may look at doing some spending freezes and making some other adjustments between now and the end of the fiscal year, but the first 2 water billing periods were below our projections. Projections for the future, again, need to be careful on how we project our rates. Retained earnings, we also need to be careful on how much we use on an annual basis, make sure we maintain healthy retained earnings for future capital projects. Again, speaking of capital projects, just having a good idea of what those projects are. Kevin Hardeman, the Director of Public Works, and his staff do a great job in projecting out the projects and their need and their costs, so we have a good idea of what they are. And then finally, state hospital connection to our town, that should be water, not sewer. We are working with the state hospital to connect the state hospital to our water system. They will pay for all of the infrastructure needs that are required to connect the state hospital. We believe that if that connecting the state hospital will be a good thing for our water system. The impact to what we would need to do to connect them is minimal as long as they're paying for the infrastructure upgrades. The plant can handle the additional flow and it'll provide additional revenue to the town that will help us stabilize rates and help us undertake the capital projects we need to undertake without impacting rates greatly in the future. So we're working on that. We have a designer chosen to undertake the design. We're just waiting for the state to finalize a memorandum of agreement with the town. And once that's done, work will begin, and we hope to have the work done by the end of the fall next year. Any questions on water?
Mr. Mackey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will say, Ms. Montoya, I was very surprised when you put sewer up there. I knew we were getting the state hospital on town water, but that was going to be a...
They're already on sewer.
I was going to say. So this is a bit of a passion of mine, but I'll try to be brief. I know this mentioned we're addressing 40% of the problem, and I do want to take a half step back and thank yourself, the staff, our DPW director, for entertaining me in my many questions and educations through this. But I would like to see, as we had talked about, a 100% plan and what that looks like and some of the options, so we can bring that not only to the board, but educate the public on it. Because as this budget shows, it's going to be very difficult to do it within what we have in the fund and what we can generate, even with the addition from the state hospital. So I think that if we can get the options out on the table and look at including things like pump stations, additional personnel. I know you had mentioned that we have DPW staff doing more work that was contracted out. That's a huge win. But if we can look at what's required to do this, 100% of the water mains and water infrastructure, again, to include those pump stations, that's required. And what those options look like at 10, 15-year plans, that would be very beneficial. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I have one.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Montori, can you tell us a little bit about how ARPA impacted, our ARPA spending impacted this plan?
Sure. The ARPA funds allowed us to, I guess the best way to say it, avoid impacting the ratepayers with $9 million worth of capital. And we were allowed to undertake water distribution work on Whipple Road and other areas of town that without the ARPA funds, we would have had to build into the budget, impact the ratepayers and their rates, but also delay work on other projects for water distribution that we were able to push up in the plan. So it was incredibly beneficial.
Thank you. I just wanted to have that kind of on the record. And then vis-a-vis water meter replacement, has that gone to bid? Have the next water meters sort of been chosen? Is that a 10-year life expectancy on those?
So because of the meters that we have, we are limited in what type of meter register will go on it and who would install it. So we're working off of a cooperative bid, state bid, that we haven't finalized yet, but we're working through that process now. And we hope to have that all in place for, if this all passes, to start July 1. And the registers that will get replaced will, like the registers we have now, have about a 10-year life.
Okay, and what's the manufacturer that we have?
We have Badger meters.
Thank you. I don't know if you saw the New York Times article this weekend, but
I don't read the New York Times.
take a look at it, yeah. Mississippi, it was a good article, I'll send it to you. All right,
Yeah,
thank you. Those are my
I'd be
questions.
interested in that, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
One more question, Mr. Mackey?
Yeah, one alibi, actually more of a statement. This water meter project, because I'm sure all of us on this board, the DPW, the town manager, have all gotten questions about high water bills in the past.
Yep.
And normally, that is because your meter has failed, and you'll have that little E code on your bill, which means it was estimated. This project is to replace those failing meter heads, give us better visibility, reduce the number of estimated bills, hopefully down to zero. But additionally, gives us the ability to, I personally have a new meter and was able to get a letter saying that I had a leak in my irrigation system. So there are things that we will be able to do with the updated meter heads that will notify people, notify residents through the water department that they may have a potential leak and may let them get ahead of a truly high water bill. So, thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I got a quick question.
go ahead, Mr. Kratman.
So, Mr. Montori, I know you mentioned Tewksbury State Hospital and them connecting, which would be great. But, we'll get the benefit of the fees once they're connected, and I understand their wells are failing and they need to actually do this. But if we had, there's going to be a cost up front to the community to do this work and connect them and to have them, to do the whatever it may cost to upgrades and whatever supply we may need to get to the hospital. Is there any major infrastructure costs that are going to have to take place to supply? Have we got a number of what they may need?
So there will need to be a connection made to the hospital through Orchard Street. They will fully pay for that cost. There is another, currently right now, there is an emergency connection that the state hospital has to our water system that is on an old AC line that they will upgrade for us, and they will pay for that. There'll be some other work to that line that we will pay for that's really not part of their project. It's something we want to do, so we'll take on that cost, but they're going to fully pay for all of the costs associated with their needed connection. And we'll get that AC line, even though it's an emergency line for their connection, it's a line we would want to upgrade in the future anyway. So they're going to pay for all of that, all of their costs. They have a grant from the federal government. DEP is committed to funding it, and we're just waiting for this MOA to be finalized, and they'll pay for the design also. So nothing is coming out of the town.
I forward something over to you that I found that a number of communities that got funding for replacing water lines in their communities. Like Andover got $750,000 toward theirs. And, you know, we saw a lot of places down the Cape and other communities that the state sent replacement costs for improvements in the community. I understand we're applying for them, but if we reached out to our delegation and asked them about we're making a lot of improvements. And, you know, it always tends to happen after like a community makes improvements, you don't get refunded, much in the same way we did our sewer. But yet you see other communities getting, you know, some sort of line item for installing sewers in their community, which we didn't get any. So I just didn't know if you've had any conversation with the delegation about helping us with some of these costs that we're trying to upgrade water to the community. You would think the state would, you know, commend us for our hard work. And, you know, we're doing water, we're doing sewer, we're doing treatment, we're doing all the right things that we're supposed to do to make, you know, the environment and everything cleaner. And yet we don't seem to be rewarded for it very well.
Yeah, I mean, we you know, when the budget process starts, we send to the delegation our priorities, and they're always water, sewer, drainage, sidewalks. And we get some funding, but the real money for water improvements that communities receive is through the state revolving fund, which is the low-interest loan program. What happened this past year, the state forgave those towns that had the loans from payments back. So as Mr. Kratman just mentioned, they ended up being straight grants to the communities. We do apply for that. We just have never made the cutoff. We're just below the cutoff for funding. But we'll, you know, to Select Board Member Kratman's point, we will be aggressive, and we'll continue to be aggressive, and we will engage the delegation because if there's funding out there, we want to get it. We always have Congressman Moulton's office always reaches out, and we bring projects forward to him also. Water, sewer, drainage, sidewalks are always on our list. So we'll continue to do that, but it's a good point.
Okay.
And I know we've made improvements to, you know, the water treatment plant and all the other things that we've done over the last couple of years. But you know, over the last couple of years, we're paying, it seemed like our debt from the borrowing was reaching a high. And we've said a couple of years, we're going to reach that peak. Have we reached that peak yet?
So I'm glad you asked the question. It's a great question, and that's part of the Sewer Enterprise Fund. We did reach that peak. We're on the other side of the peak. Going down the hill right now is a little slower than we would like to see, but within the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to see a dramatic drop-off in our debt for sewer, and that'll be beneficial in 2 areas. One, you'll see a benefit to the rate because the ratepayers for sewer pay 50% of that debt, and you'll see it to the taxpayer because the taxpayers pay 50% of our sewer debt. This is the one enterprise fund that the general fund subsidizes through a debt exclusion. So to Mr. Kratman's point, we hit the high, and now we're moving down to the low point in the debt. We'll see a real benefit.
As I've talked to you before, I'd like to see the water and sewer rates, you know, the funds go to the water and sewer. So, you know, as those rates start going down and the amount goes, you know, we get the savings, if we're still charging a certain rate and we always seem to have a little bit more of what we projected, you know, looking at your thing, and there was a couple of million over a number of years, you know, I want to make sure that goes right back into water and sewer improvements, because, you know, it's going to take us many years to do it. It's hard to explain to the public, even though you know, we've all been through it, we've all discussed it, but, you know, we're raising water rates and we're one of the highest rates around, and if you go out and talk to the public, their concerns are we're paying the highest, and yet we have brown water and we have chloride in the water and those type of things. I know we're making this investment to improve it, but that doesn't make them feel any better that they're paying high and they're still getting, you know, not the best quality water coming to their homes. So I'd like to see that when those rates go down, I'd like to see that money put back into it to try to improve it.
Absolutely. All the money, all the revenue from water and sewer stays with water and sewer. All the revenue from cable stays with cable. Same thing with stormwater. That's why the enterprise funds are a great accounting tool for us. As I mentioned earlier, all of the revenue stays with the fund. All of the interest and surplus that the fund generates stays with the fund. It doesn't impact the general fund in any way, and the general fund doesn't impact the enterprise funds in any way, with the exception of the allocations I mentioned. But to Mr. Kratman's point, all of the money that these funds generate stay with the fund and will stay with the fund.
All right, thank you.
Yep. And let me just, I'm probably stating the obvious, but it follows on what Mr. Kratman just said. Some of this is choice. And Mr. Kratman said it in a different way about residents inquiring about the quality of water. I look at it from the vantage point of residents told us that was one of their highest concerns in terms of the infrastructure that was causing leaks and causing poor quality. And this board not long ago made water infrastructure improvements one of its highest priorities. So it's a choice, right? We're investing, as you point out, over the next 5 years, $27 million to address that exact concern. We could choose to defer that. We could choose to walk away from it. It doesn't seem like a prudent decision to do that. I don't think anybody at this table would advocate for that, but you can't have it both ways. You have to recognize the need, and then you have to fund it. And that's what these numbers are showing us. So I think we all have to keep that in mind, and most importantly, make our best efforts to keep the public apprised and informed so that they see the basis behind that. It's not just a random number, it's a number in response to a need and a choice point that people made a priority, not just those of us here. The community was loud and clear around that.
Move on to sewer?
Please. We're hitting 4 hours here at the table.
I'm trying, I'm sorry.
I know you are. You're doing the best you can.
No, I feel like I'm going too fast through it.
It's not on you.
I apologize to everybody.
No.
So the sewer enterprise budget, enterprise fund only has one budget. It's the sewer budget. This is a snapshot of the entire sewer enterprise fund budget. Salaries decreased $36,451. Similar to what I mentioned in water, we had someone retire who had terminal leave in FY24 that's not needed in FY25. The overall expenses for sewer increased $25,968. Overall, just their direct operating increased $62,419. The biggest driver here is Lowell Sewer, a Lowell Sewer assessment, which is based on allocable costs that Lowell uses on an annual basis. That was the biggest increase in our sewer operating budget. There were some other areas that adjusted that allowed us to have decreases, but Lowell Sewer is the biggest driver in our sewer budget, other than debt. And debt for the sewer enterprise fund is $3.5 million. But going back to the important statement that Mr. Kratman made earlier, we're going to start to see that go down significantly. Within the next 5 years, you'll see that probably cut in half, which is a good thing. There's no capital outlay in the sewer enterprise budget. Requested in the sewer enterprise budget, and the allocations increased $16,785, mainly because of health insurance, retirement assessment, and Medicare tax. The sewer capital improvements over the next 5 years total $3,266,000. a little over $1 million for inflow and infiltration control, $1.8 million for sewer pump stations. It's always important to note that we are the leader in pump stations in the Commonwealth. We have 47 pump stations, which when you tell that to people, they just stare at you and can't believe it. $416,000 for fleet and equipment replacement over the next 5 years. Specifically in FY25, we're going to spend $50,000 in inflow and infiltration controls being paid for by retained earnings, $400,000 for pump station improvements, again from retained earnings, and $75,000 for a vehicle that will be shared with the water division, $75,000. All capital for sewer will be paid from retained earnings. Retained earnings, as I mentioned earlier, has a balance of a little over $5.8 million. And we have a stabilization fund for sewer that has a little over $4 million. It's important to note that we do use our retained earnings to each year to help offset debt service. We've used it to offset the highest, the peak in the debt service for sewer. We'll use it for the next couple of years, and then it will drop as the debt service drops. This gives you an idea of the percentage of debt service percentage to budget. And as you can see, it drops significantly over the next few years. And again, that'll be a savings both to ratepayers and to taxpayers. Sewer revenue, mainly coming from user fees. We're projecting a little over $7.1 million in revenue for the sewer enterprise fund, 5.9 of it coming from user fees. This slide gives you an indication of the retained earnings that we've used to help offset debt service that have helped keep rates stabilized in sewer. A small surplus in sewer of $37,347, which we're comfortable going into FY25 with. This slide just gives you a good indication of budget to revenue at sewer, or the history that goes back to 2012, and how revenue has been fairly stable, and the budgets have been fairly stable since then. The paragraph below again outlines the retained earnings that we'll be using to fund, that we have used and will use to help offset debt. Sewer rates, they'll be increasing in FY25 for both town and out of town and exempt properties. Unlike water, we do have sewer connections for out of town users. They have a different rate than our in-town users, and exempt properties also have a different rate than our in-town users. And the reason for that is because 50% of the sewer debt is on the tax levy. Those who don't pay taxes in town, whether you're exempt or out of town, pay a higher rate to make up for that debt that the taxpayers are paying for. Rates have not increased in the 5 years prior to FY24. In FY24, they did increase 3%. And again, the major driver in the increase in FY24 and in FY25 has been the Lowell sewer assessment. Sewer usage, like water, is based on the August 21, December 21, and April 22 billing cycles. Again, it's based on usage driven by water usage, so it has the same effects when you have a rainy year or a dry year. We're going to base it on 526,051,150 gallons. There's no change in the FY24 from the FY24 usage, and our collection rate, similar to water, is 94%. This is the new rate tier for sewer. As you can see, our out-of-town rates are higher than our in-town rates. They're almost a little over double, which reflects their share of the debt that would have been 100% debt on the sewer rate. If we didn't, and this slide is always good to mention, if we didn't have 50% of the debt on the tax levy, the out-of-town rates for what we'd be paying. So it gives you an indication how rates would be.
Wow.
This is a slide that gives you an indication of the increase in sewer, annual sewer bills, similar to water. Most of the users, 69%, are within that 55,000 gallon usage. They'll see a $9 increase. 92% are within the 90,000 gallon usage. They'll see a $17.10 increase. We have 7,167 users, residential users for sewer, which is obviously lower than water because not everyone is hooked up to sewer. Again, this is just a comparison of where we stand compared to other communities. Sewer, unlike water, does have a general fund subsidy, so our rates are more competitive. So this gives you an idea where we stand based on what we have for rate information. Final comments, 78% of the users in town are hooked up to sewer. In FY11, we had 62%, so obviously we've had a lot of connections since then. Future debt service, as I mentioned, and has been brought up, is going to drop off significantly, which is a good thing. Projection in future years should be stable. We'll see minor increases. The big capital projects will just be the pump stations and addressing inflow and infiltration issues. Retained earnings, we have healthy retained earnings that will help pay for that capital work that we have. So we always should make sure we have enough to do that and not have to borrow. We always need to keep an eye on our out-of-town users. At what point, when there was going to be development in Andover off of Daskin Road, there was a concern that those users would connect to Andover, which would be a loss in revenue for us that we need to make up another way. So it's always good to keep an eye on that, as well as monitor the state hospital usage. They have a major water bill for the town, but a lot of it's driven because they have combined drain sewer. So a lot of their sewer flow is from drainage. So once they correct that, which they will have to in the future, that bill is going to shrink. So we need to be prepared for that, and hopefully the timing happens when our debt is going down so we can not have a big spike in any rates. That's it on sewer. Again, I'm sorry for the speed. Any questions?
Do you have any estimation, and if you don't have it tonight, maybe you can just follow up, but what's the annual hookup these days in terms of, you gave us a number, we went up to 78% on sewer, but are we seeing 25 hookups a year, 15 hookups a year, any kind of number you can put on that?
Mr. Chair, I'd say over the last 5 years, it's ranged anywhere from 90 to 110.
Okay, so around 100 a year. Yeah, that's good progress. Thank you.
Stormwater enterprise. This is our most recent enterprise fund that we adopted, which addresses our drainage system in the community and our outfalls. Unlike our other enterprise funds, this fund is strictly focused on capital and permit compliance. There are no salaries that are part of this budget. There are no allocations or indirect costs that are charged to this enterprise fund. The intent in bringing this forward was to have an enterprise fund that would address our permit and address capital, needed capital in the community. The expenses in the enterprise fund $697,225 for FY25, an increase of $111,000, and that's all going towards compliance of our permit. The increase this year, the large increase, is we moved money from the highway budget to the enterprise budget that's specifically for stormwater into the enterprise fund, and I believe that was for, was it sweeping or collection? Catch basin cleaning was moved to the enterprise fund budget. That's why you see a large increase. And then the surplus that you see here from our revenue, that $436,000 surplus will actually be $36,621 because we have $400,000 capital projects that we want to undertake in FY '25. So that actually it's $425,000 in capital projects we're going to undertake, so there'll be $11,621 surplus. The enterprise fund has a pretty straightforward fee. It's $75 per year for residents, which is broken out over the 3 billing periods, so it's $25 a billing period. Large residential and commercial users pay a higher rate, but it's based on $75 per equivalent residential unit. So the base is the $75, and the large residential and commercial are billed off of that. We collect, we have an estimated revenue of $700,571 from residents. And we have an estimated revenue of $491,736 from large residential and large commercial users. We have a 93% collection rate. Additional revenue from the stormwater enterprise is $40,000 for interest and liens. For previous year's rates, interest and liens is $10,000 for a total of $50,000 in additional revenue to what I just mentioned that is generated from users. It's a very tight budget. We don't carry a lot of surplus. We go as close as we can to generating a small surplus because of the work we have to do. Over the next 5 years, we have $2,495,000 worth of work, $1.9 million in drains, $595,000 in project development, all generated from the stormwater fee. In FY '25, we're going to use $250,000 of the $425 for drainage system improvements in the Van Buren drainage system area, and $175,000 for project development to begin the design, but to do the design for Franklin School Street, Glenwood, and Adams area, and a culvert replacement design for the Upper Pinnacle Street culvert at Dunvegan. All projects, again, are either going to be funded by the stormwater fee or any or retained earnings or grants that we are fortunate to receive. Right now, we have $948,035 in stormwater retained earnings, and we'd like that to grow further before we start using it for any projects. Any questions on stormwater?
Anybody? No?
One quick question. The culvert area, thank you, Mr. Chairman, of Pinnacle Street, is that near the other culvert that failed? We had that big mess a couple of years ago.
It's just further towards Andover.
So is that's not at a crisis, this is an attempt to get ahead of any sort of, yeah. But is it about the same age as the old one was, or?
Same age, same style.
Okay, so now's the time. All right, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, capital improvement plan. So we have a 5-year capital improvement plan. We've had one for over 10 years, probably closer to 15 years. This is a document that is a summary of the plan. There is a larger plan that I sent to the board that will be online tomorrow that has all of the requested capital improvements and narratives for each of them. So this is a summary plan of, this first page is just the general fund. And it covers facilities and grounds, fire, public works, transportation, and fleet and equipment. And over the next 5 years, we're looking at $13.9 million in capital improvements. All of it to be funded through grants, Chapter 90 funds, free cash, and the stabilization fund. So when people comment that we have $18 million in the stabilization fund, and why aren't you giving me a raise or putting it towards an operating budget, this is why. It's used for one-time expenditures, the stabilization fund, for capital improvements and for extreme emergencies. But as you can see from just this page, the need that we have in capital. And the important thing to stress, this is just the town side. This doesn't even include what the schools need. This next summary is the enterprise budgets, the sewer, water, stormwater, and telemedia. And then at the bottom, you can see a total capital need, capital for all funds of $53.9 million. That's all of our funds. This next slide just focuses on the capital that will raise and appropriate funding for, either through stabilization funds, CPA funds, or free cash. And just this group is $9.2 million over the next 5 years, focusing on facilities and grounds, fire, and DPW. As you can see, that the largest one here is the fire department, and this is to purchase our ambulances every other year, our fire trucks, work to the North Station is going to be a big project. Again, because we have a stabilization fund, we're able to do this without borrowing any funds. So that's been the goal, and we've been able to achieve that. This next slide is specific to the use of Chapter 90 funds, which are funds we receive from the Commonwealth for roadway improvements, sidewalks, drainage, and over the next 5 years, we'll be spending $4.7 million for these improvements. Again, focusing on our roadway, sidewalk, and drainage. This next slide just gives you a summary of the enterprise fund projects for water, sewer, stormwater, and telemedia. The water enterprise fund just focuses on the funds we'll be using retained earnings for. We will be borrowing funds for water distribution and water meters that you'll see in a minute. This is the borrowing that we'll undertake for water and for water distribution and water meters. As you can see, this is the largest part of our water enterprise fund and has the biggest impact to the rates. And again, the $5.4 million a year will be for 3 miles of pipe. And then the $1.5 million for 3 years will address the meter registers. This last slide just gives you an indication of the total capital plan summary, and then at the bottom of that slide, the annual capital improvement plan cost each year, whether it's from reserves or debt service. That just gives you an indication of how much we plan to spend on capital improvements per year. This next slide is what we intend to bring to town meeting to fund from the stabilization fund, DPW equipment, fire, vehicles and equipment, a new drone for the police department, improvements to town buildings for computer services, and improvements for our facilities and grounds. Total of $1,354,223 from the stabilization fund. We have a balance of 18.2. This will bring us down to 16.8. Again, this does not include any capital that the schools will need over the next year. This next slide gives you an idea of what we'll be bringing forward from the for the enterprise funds, for water and sewer retained earnings, as well as stormwater fees for capital projects, varying from vehicles that will be shared between the highway, sewer divisions, and water divisions to specific vehicles for water and sewer and projects for each. And again, the capital improvement plan that I sent has narratives for this. This next slide gives you an idea of the roadway paving projects that will be undertaken by the DPW in the spring of '24 and the fall of '24. Everyone wants to know which roads are going to be paved over the next year. When you take a look at the capital plan that has the narratives and the detail, you'll be able to see where we're going to do work over the next 5 years. But this is just specific to the next spring and fall construction season. These are the water projects that will be undertaken in the spring of '24 and through the spring of '25. I know everyone's always wondering what roads we're going to undertake for water improvements. It's important to know that the roadway work is going to outpace the water work. So we will be paving roads that will have asbestos cement pipe in it. But those roads that will be doing that work are going to be in areas that we've had limited water breaks, actually had no water breaks. The pipe is in good shape. We're comfortable to pave those roads. Those roads would need to be paved, and they're just mill and overlay type road paving. They're not major in-depth reconstruction, just to get the road in good shape and hold it until the water main is going to be replaced. But it won't be the type of thing that we're going to be digging up roads in a couple of years. So it's just important to know that we just can't keep pace. They both can't keep pace with each other in certain areas. This slide gives you an indication of the drainage projects, the sewer projects, and the sidewalk projects that we'll be doing in the spring of '24 and '25. Again, as you can see from this slide and the previous slides, the DPW is undertaking a lot of work, but residents can see where the work is going to take place. And again, this presentation will be online for everyone to see. And then just general future needs, we just got to always monitor the use of free cash stabilization fund and our retained earnings and other reserves. I know, as we all know, this year people are wanting to utilize it for operating budgets, which should never happen. We set aside $600,000 of our free cash every year to plan for possible snow and ice deficits. We continue to do that. After free cash is certified in July 1, we should work to replenish the stabilization fund for any money that we used in annual town meeting in FY '24. We've been able to do that the last few years, and in most cases put in more. We need to make sure we're using these funds to address our town and school facilities, our equipment, our infrastructure needs. We need to identify any of those needs that come up after the May town meeting that maybe we didn't catch, or something that was unfunded that we want to do, and address that in the fall. Stormwater improvements and permit compliance, we need to make sure we stay focused on that. I think drainage is becoming is probably the major issue in town right now. As much as we need to do our water work and the importance of improving our water distribution center, stormwater and drainage improvements have become probably our top complaint. And we need to start thinking about how we can get more money to that area. Pavement management, continue to improve our roads, even though it's going to outpace water. Keep improving our roads as best we can. Continue our sidewalk project program, which we've been doing, and that the residents have wanted. Make sure we're maintaining our town and school facilities, so we're not getting run down to the point that we're going to need new buildings, or they're going to cost more to renovate than if we just put money towards them each year. And that's the same thing with vehicles and equipment. That's it. Thank you. It's a lot.
Indeed. All right, very comprehensive. I beg the question, anyone have any questions? All right,
A
good.
quick comment. No, I have a quick comment.
All right.
I promise it'll be quick.
You do or you don't?
I do promise.
That you're done or you have a comment? I didn't hear you.
I'll leave my comments offline.
Okay. All right. I was reminded that I didn't ask if any residents had any comments this evening, and there is one resident in the room, so I'm hopeful he's going to give us a no, but The floor is open if there is a comment.
I have one comment.
Okay, you need to use the microphone then, okay? I know.
It's not the kind of comment that I have to identify my residents.
Well, you need to do that because our recording secretary.
Bruce Schick, 30 Lucille Drive.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you all for everything you do for almost no money. It's unbelievable. And I want to thank you, Mr. Montori, for incredible leadership, putting all this crap together for us. Excuse me.
Thank you.
This wonderful work. It's just amazing. Obviously, along the way, I go, oh, yeah, we could do this, we could do that. I'm thinking, oh, my God, we do so much. So it's incredible. And, you know,
Thank
to
you.
sit here for 4 hours once, or whatever it's been, 4.5 for you, 4 for me, you know, I'm just, my hat's off to you. Like I say to James, I never want to do this. This is way too much work for what you get paid.
Thanks for your comments. It's a good way to end the evening. So, and I want to thank, echo your comments to thank the town manager. That's a very thorough presentation, and I know every year you do better and better in terms of the detail, so we appreciate it.
You should teach this stuff.
All right, the hour is late. We're going to end this meeting before 10:30. Can I,
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to
Second.
adjourn by Mr. Mackey, seconded by Ms. Wellman. Mr. Kratman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mackey?
Aye.
Ms. Wellman?
Aye.
Mr. Holland?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are now adjourned at 10:29. Everyone have a great night.